Chapter 51. Lu Chen also has a special identity. After hearing Mu Zixuan's suggestion, Lu Chen's eyes lit up and he felt that this method was feasible. At first, his eyes were limited to Beijun, mainly because he was not strong enough yet and he did not want to be too high profile. Moreover, he had just come to Beijun at that time and was still very poor. Even if he issued an announcement to choose a concubine, beautiful girls from other fiefdoms might not come to Beijun. Nowadays, Buangfu's soap, perfume, and soap products have spread all over the Great Xia Dynasty, and many people know that Buangfu is rich. If the concubine selection announcement is issued at this time, many big families will definitely be interested and send beautiful girls from their families to the North Prince's mansion. As long as there are enough people, there will always be someone with a score of over 90 points. After Lu Chen was silent for a while, he said to Mu Zixuan, "Okay, then just follow what my beloved concubine said." Seeing that Lu Chen agreed, Mu Zixuan immediately said, "My lord, can you leave the matter of choosing a concubine to me?" Lu Chen hugged Mu Zixuan's body, stroked her hair and said, "You just gave birth to a baby not long ago, you should take good care of yourself." Although Lu Chen is a scumbag, he is not such a beast. His own princess just gave birth to a child and he made her busy and asked her to help take in concubines. "What is it like?" Mu Zixuan said, "I want to share the burden for you, Your Majesty, please leave this matter to me." Speaking of this, Mu Zixuan looked straight at Lu Chen with her bright eyes. Seeing Mu Zixuan's eyes, Lu Chen felt a little touched in his heart and couldn't bear to refuse, so he had to say, "Okay, I'll worry about the concubine, but I need to be present in person on the day of choosing the concubine." Seeing that Lu Chen agreed to let her take over the concubinage matter, Mu Zixuan was very happy. She immediately said, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. When choosing a concubine, I will definitely let you choose it yourself." A few days later, the Buang mansion issued a concubinage announcement to the entire Xia dynasty. As soon as the concubinage announcement was issued, Lu Chen was scolded by the people of the Great Xia dynasty. Not many people in Beijun thought this was a big deal. After all, King Bei didn't do anything to trouble the people after coming to Beijun. Moreover, Buangfu seems to have recently cultivated grain seeds that can produce 1,000 kilograms per mu. Buangfu has already had people try planting them in various places in Beijun. If this kind of food called potatoes is popularized, then the entire North County will no longer be short of food, so the people of Bei County will be tolerant of Lu Chen's indulgence. Of course, the most critical point is that the people of Beijun are all in Lu Chen's fiefdom. Lu Chen is the king of Beijun, and no one dares to scold their king in the fiefdom unless they don't want to live anymore. It was different in other territories. Most people in the Xia dynasty believed that the northern king indulged in promiscuity and was fatuous and incompetent. They had long heard that King Bei kept many beautiful concubines in his palace, and they spent their days having fun and enjoying wine and meat. There are already so many beautiful concubines in the northern king's capital, but they still want to take concubines, and they have to face all the territories of the Great Xia dynasty to take concubines. Is it possible that King Bei has already played with all the beautiful girls in Bei County and is tired of playing with them, so he wants to harm the girls in other vassal kings' territories again? Thinking of this, some upper-class literati and flirtatious people became very angry. If King Bei sent all the beautiful girls to King Bei's mansion, how could they keep concubines? For a time, literati from various places wrote articles criticizing the northern king. At the same time, there were also remarks about impeaching the northern king in the court of Xia. The court officials impeached King Bei, naturally not because they were worried that King Bei would steal their women. Generally, things that were brought to court had political reasons. Most of those who impeached the northern king were officials from the 8th Prince Lu Shiyun's faction. As for the purpose, it was mainly to belittle Lu Chen. Although the Chu family has basically no contact with the northern king, as long as there is that blood relationship, officials from Lu Xiyun's faction will not miss any opportunity to slander the northern king. It's not that they thought that if Lu Chen was impeached, Lu Chen would be deprived of the throne. The vassal kings of the Xia dynasty were not easily deprived of their thrones, unless they rebelled or committed betrayal of the Xia dynasty. For someone like King Bei, who did not do anything wrong in Tibet, but just stayed in his own palace to have fun, the court would not care about him. Emperor Xia wished that the Great Xia dynasty would all have vassal kings like Lu Chen. If the Great Xia dynasty had vassal kings like Lu Chen, then the Xia emperor would be able to control the entire Great Xia more easily. Faced with Yan Guan's impeachment of Lu Chen, Emperor Xia didn't take it seriously at all. The recent events in the capital were the most important. As for King Bei, as long as he didn't rebel, what he did in Bei County had nothing to do with the court. After leaving the court, Emperor Xia went to the imperial garden. Emperor Xia didn't take the commotion in the court seriously, and it was time to deal with business after the court. At this moment, Imperial Master Situ Ce was already waiting in the pavilion. Unlike the ministers in the court, the Imperial Master does not have to go to court. This is the prerogative of the Grand Master. When Emperor Xia appeared in the pavilion, a shadow guard wearing black armor appeared in front of him. "Your Majesty, I have found out that the remnants of the Chen kingdom entered the palace not to assassinate you, but to find something." Since the remnants of the Chen state entered the palace, Emperor Xia sent people to investigate the purpose of the remnants of the Chen state entering the palace. He didn't believe that the remnants of the Chen kingdom would be so stupid, daring to enter the palace to assassinate him when there were only 2 half-step masters. That was no different from committing suicide. After hearing the shadow guard's words, Emperor Xia narrowed his eyes slightly. As he thought, the remnants of the Chen kingdom did not want to assassinate him, but had an ulterior motive. At this time, Emperor Xia asked Situ Ce in the pavilion, "What does the Imperial Master think the remnants of the Chen kingdom are looking for when they enter the palace?" Situ Ce said, "The only thing that can make the remnants of the Chen kingdom take such a big risk to enter the palace to look for it is the Chen kingdom's jade seal. It is rumored that the jade seal of the Chen state is the key to the Chen state's treasure house. After Xia captured the Chen state, the location of the Chen state's treasure house has not been found, but I believe that the remnants of the Chen state's royal family must know about it. If the Chen state wants to recover, it needs money to recruit troops and horses, so they should be eager to open the Chen state's treasury and take out the gold and silver treasures inside." After hearing what Situ Ce said, Emperor Xia snorted coldly and said, "Even I don't know where the jade seal of the state of Chen is. They actually want to come to the palace to look for the jade seal of the state of Chen. It's simply ridiculous." At this time, the shadow guard in front of Emperor Xia continued, "Your Majesty, my subordinates also found out one more thing." Emperor Xia said calmly, "Tell me." The commander of the shadow guards immediately said, "My subordinates found out that the remnants of the Chen kingdom seem to be related to Suanya Palace. After the remnants of the Chen kingdom disappeared, the disciples of Suanya Palace appeared in the place where they last appeared." Upon hearing the words Suanya Palace, Emperor Xia's face darkened instantly, as if the words Suanya Palace touched something he didn't want to recall. Emperor Xia then said, "I understand." Having said this, Emperor Xia immediately asked, "How is Xiaju doing?" The commander of the Shadow Guard replied, "After the 9th prince went to Beijing, he had fun in the palace every day. There was nothing unusual. In addition, the 9th prince's princess gave birth to the prince a few days ago." After listening to the report from the Shadow Guard commander, Emperor Xia said calmly, "Okay, you can go down." "Yes, Your Majesty, I am resigning." After the Shadow Guard commander left, Emperor Xia clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the fish swimming in the lotus pond and said, "National Master, why do I feel that the Grand Master next to Xiaoju was not sent by Chu Xiang, but instead seemed to be placed under his control by Suanya Palace?" Around. Lu Chen's mother, Chu Yu, was once a member of Suanya Palace and was also the goddess of Suanya Palace. Emperor Xia didn't think about Xuanyu Palace at first. It wasn't until the Shadow Guard commander mentioned it just now that he realized that Lu Chen had a special identity. I've been sick these days, so updates are slow. I'll update after a while. Chapter 52 Someone should indeed be sent to watch him. According to the regulations of Xuanyu Palace, the child born to the goddess of Xuanyu Palace is the son of God, so Lu Chen is the son of God of Xuanyu Palace. Thinking of this, Emperor Xia's face became uncertain. Now he regretted sending Lu Chen out to join the feudal clan. This is an extremely unstable factor, after all, it involves the sex in Daxia. Xuanyu Palace will probably use King Bei to deal with the capital. Now Xuanyu Palace is suspected of colluding with the remnants of the Chen kingdom. Who knows what they want to do? Thinking of this, Emperor Xia sneered and said, "The family has not been solved yet," and the sect jumped out again. "It really won't let me have an easy day." Hearing this, Situ Ce said, "If your majesty is worried about the collusion between King Bei and Xuanyu Palace, why not send a shadow guard beside him to monitor him?" After hearing Situ Ce's words, Emperor Xia pondered for a moment, "You should indeed send someone to watch him." After the words fell, Emperor Xia said to him, "Commander Bai, I leave this matter to you. You go to Beijun in person. I want to find out which Grand Master is so kind to Zaiju and has always been by his side. Be there to protect him." There seemed to be no one behind Emperor Xia at this time, but as Emperor Xia finished speaking, the figure of a woman wearing white clothes gradually emerged. The woman has a graceful figure and a curvy figure, and her face is cold and expressionless. She saluted and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Emperor Xia continued, "Okay, go down. My subordinates resign." After the woman finished speaking, her body disappeared again, as if she had become invisible. Seeing that Emperor Xia actually asked the deputy commander of the Shadow Guard to go to Beijun in person, Situ Ce felt a little incredible. Then he asked, "Your Majesty, would it be a bit of a fuss to ask Commander Bai to go to Beijun to investigate this matter?" Emperor Xia said calmly, "Anything related to Xuanyu Palace is not a trivial matter." Seeing that Emperor Xia had said this, Situ Ce stopped talking. He knew very well that Emperor Xia was very afraid of Xuanyu Palace, which had a lot to do with Chu Yu. At this time, Situ Ce asked, "Your Majesty, Mu Chongtian should be leaving the capital in the next few days, right?" Hearing Situ Ce mention Mu Chongtian, Emperor Xia's expression changed slightly and became gloomy. "What? Is the Imperial Master planning to intercede for Mu Chongtian?" Hearing Emperor Xia's cold tone, Situ Ce knew that nothing he could say would be of any use. Emperor Xia was determined to have his own way and must get rid of Mu Changtian's family. Since there was no point in saying anything, Situ Ce did not intend to waste any more time. He immediately said, "That's not true. I just want to persuade Your Majesty that if you want to take action against the Jiangnan family, you must have a few confidants around you." Originally, Mu Chongtian could be the sword Emperor Xia used to get rid of the Jiangnan family, but Emperor Xia was afraid of the military power in his hands and insisted on killing him. Now there are fewer and fewer trustworthy people around Emperor Xia, and he may really become a loner in the future. However, Situ Ce did not intend to interfere too much. As long as the Great Xia Dynasty still had the surname Lu, everything had nothing to do with him as the Great Master. Faced with Situ Ce's reminder, Emperor Xia said nonchalantly, "I will remember the Imperial Master's reminder." The 8th Prince's residence. Lu Shiyun looked at the intelligence collected in front of him and said with a sneer, "My 9th brother is really stupid and lucky. The soaps and perfumes he makes are so profitable. The battle between princes also requires money to win people's hearts, so Lu Shiyun has always been more concerned about making money. For example, the masters in his mansion were recruited with money. If there was no money, he would not be able to recruit so many masters." Seeing Lu Chen having fun in the palace all day long, not having to do anything, not having to take care of anything, and making hundreds of thousands of taels of silver by leaving all the palace business to a woman, how could Lu Chen not be jealous? He had built so many industries and could not earn hundreds of thousands of taels of silver in a month, but Lu Chen, a good-for-nothing prince, could, which made Lu Chen feel very unbalanced. After hearing what Lu Chen said, the guest next to him whispered, "Your Highness, why don't we find a way to go to Buwang Mansion to steal the soap and perfume making methods, and then sell soap and perfume ourselves?" Lu Chen said calmly, "No need, the owner of Blood Moon Tower has already gone to Beijing in person. I think it won't be long before he can bring back the methods of making soap and perfume." Hearing this, Kei Qing's face changed greatly, and he quickly said, "Your Highness, you must not touch the ninth prince at this time. If anything happens to the ninth prince, many people in the court will definitely say that it was you who sent someone, Your Highness. Assassinated the ninth prince, this will be very detrimental to your succession. This is a critical period and there must be no room for error." Faced with Kei Qing's persuasion, Lu Chen didn't care at all. Now that the situation in the capital is in chaos, not many people care about that good-for-nothing prince in the north. And the barbarians will move north soon. No one will know that Suiyu Tower did this. The ministers will only focus on the barbarians. Hearing Lu Chen's words, Kei Qing's expression froze. It was obvious that the amount of information Lu Chen said was so huge that Kei Qing beside Lu Chen could not react for a moment. A few days later, at the gate of the capital, prison cars passed by the city gate one after another, but the people did not throw stones or rotten eggs at the prisoners inside the cars as usual. Common people all know that today is the day when Mu Kuogong's family is exiled, and the people in the prison van are all family members of Mu Kuogong's family. The common people still know who Duke Mu is. He is one of the two great kings of the Xia Dynasty. He was the one who supported the Xia Emperor to ascend to the throne. Although he has fallen to this stage now, the people still respect him in awe. At this moment, on the tower, a man in silver armor looked at the slowly advancing prison car and asked the people around him, "Are you all ready?" The soldier next to him immediately said, "General, don't worry, I guarantee that everything will be perfect." The man nodded with satisfaction, stared at Mu Chongtian in the prison car, and then said to himself, "Teacher, have a good trip." The Mu Mansion's exile convoy encountered no danger at all in the first 2 days, and the people in the Mu Mansion even thought that they were fine. But Mu Chongtian is not stupid. Everything they eat and use in the past 2 days must be thoroughly inspected by them. Although the soldiers escorting them are unlikely to do anything to them, they must be on guard against others. And he didn't believe that Emperor Xia would let their family go. After all, he is also one of the 2 kings of Daxia. Even if his martial arts has been abolished, in the eyes of Emperor Xia, letting him go is still equivalent to letting the tiger return to the mountain. 2 nights later, Mu's convoy arrived at an inn. There were no villages or shops around the inn, and there was no one very far away. The officer escorting the Mu Mansion saw that it was already so late, so he said to Mu Chongtian, "Mr. Mu, why don't we rest here tonight?" Var. Although Mu Kuogong's mansion has been exiled, the escorting officers are still very respectful to their family. The corners of Mu Changtian's mouth raised slightly, and then he said, "Okay, let's rest here for one night." Chapter 53 Come out, stop hiding. As Mu Chongtian finished speaking, the escorting officers took out the keys of the prison van, opened the door of the prison van, and released everyone from Duke Mu's mansion. Because they were escorting the Duke Mu's family, the guards were not so strict. Usually when they arrived at the resting place, they would open the car door and let them out to rest. At this time, a guard walked into the inn and said to the owner of the inn, "Honor, we are going to stay here today. How many rooms does your inn have?" The shopkeeper said with a smile on his face, "Sir, the inn is full, you'd better go elsewhere." Hearing this, the officer said dissatisfiedly, "What, is it full? Are you kidding me? You have no business here, how can you get so many customers? The innkeeper said, because there is no village in front of us and no store in the back, people passing by this road can only come to our inn to stay. Hearing this, the guard had no choice but to say, well, do you have a wider space here? Let's rest tonight. The innkeeper said, the backyard of our inn is quite spacious. Why don't you spend the night in the backyard? The servant thought for a while and was about to say something when the innkeeper immediately continued, if the official stays at our inn, the food and drinks tonight will be free. What do you think? After hearing this, the guard said without hesitation, well, find someone to help us feed the horses. The shopkeeper immediately said, okay, I will arrange for someone to feed the horse. The officer then turned around and left the inn, came to Mu Chongtian, and said apologetically, Mr. Mu, I'm really sorry. This inn is full of people, and I'm afraid you will have to rest in the open air tonight. Mu Chongtian said calmly, it doesn't matter, you can go and do your work. The servant immediately said, okay, I will ask the shopkeeper to bring you some food later. After the words fell, the officer walked away. At this time, two brothers, Mu Jingguo and Mu Xinping, surrounded him. Mu Xinping said, Dad, why has it been 2 days and no one has taken action against us? Doesn't His Majesty intend to let us go? Hearing this, Mu Chongtian laughed, and then said, why are you so anxious? Aren't they coming soon? Hearing this, Mu Xinping was startled, and then looked around nervously, where are they? Where are they? Why didn't I see them? Mu Chongtian looked at the inn in front of him and said, they are waiting for us inside. Hearing this, Mu Xinping and Mu Jingguo turned their eyes to the inn in front of them. At this time, they saw a few people staring at them upstairs with half-open windows. Seeing that the Mu family noticed the upstairs, those people immediately closed the windows. Seeing this scene, Mu Jingguo and Mu Xinping were shocked. They thought that the emperor had already planned to let them go, but they didn't expect that it was just that the time hadn't come yet. They were afraid that those people would take action tonight. Mu Jingguo then asked, Dad, what should we do now? Mu Chongtian said, let's talk about it tonight, I want to see who is coming. Mu Chongtian knew in his heart that the emperor would definitely send a master-level expert this time, but he was not sure who he would be. There are many masters he can think of, and there are also many who have conflicts with him. Soon, the sun in the sky gradually set. Mu Chongtian and the others were also very energetic. At this moment, a whistle sounded in the yard. As the whistle sounded, a group of people wearing black clothes and masks appeared in the yard. After seeing this scene, the officers escorting Mu Qiagong's mansion understood something immediately. They quickly got up and ran away. The men in black did not stop the guards from escaping. After all, their target was not the guards themselves. The men in black took out their bows and arrows and aimed them at the people in Duke Mu's mansion. The men from Duke Mu's mansion immediately stood up and surrounded the men and children. At this time, the women in Duke Mu's mansion were trembling with fear and did not dare to move at all. At this time, the crowd in black gradually dispersed, and a man walked out of the crowd. The man took off his mask, revealing his scarred face. After seeing the man's true face, Mu Chongtian sneered and said, I just thought of anyone who might come to see me off, but I didn't think of you. Hearing this, the scarred man also smiled and said, Teacher, if I hadn't come to see you off personally, how could His Majesty be willing to hand over the newly formed Dragon Guard army to me? The scarred man in front of him is named Chen Penji. He was promoted by Mu Chongtian, who can also be regarded as his mentor. On weekdays, in order to repay his teacher's kindness, Chen Penji was also very kind to Duke Mu's family. Even when Mu Qiagong's palace was implicated due to the Zhou family's rebellion a year ago, he personally begged Emperor Xia for mercy. In the end, Emperor Xia used the Iron Scroll to avoid death, so he did not take action against Mu Qiagong's palace. However, What Mu Chongtian didn't expect was that such a person would actually want his own life. Mu Chongtian sighed and said, "People's hearts are really unpredictable. It seems that when you begged the emperor for mercy, it was just to get the Mu family to hand over the Iron Scroll to avoid death. This should be what the emperor asked you to do, right?" Chen Penji said calmly, "Teacher, it's already this time, what else is there to say about those things? Why don't you tell me what unfulfilled wishes you have, and maybe the students can fulfill them for you?" Hearing this, Mu Chongtian laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, Chen Penji, today I was abandoned by Lu Xingqiu, you never thought that one day you would also be abandoned by Lu Xingqiu. By that time, I'm afraid your end will be even more miserable than mine." Chen Penji said with a nonchalant expression, "Teacher doesn't need to worry about this. I will never follow the teacher's path." "Okay, since the teacher has nothing to say, please go on your way." Having said this, Chen Penji waved his hand and said coldly, "Fire the arrow." However, at this moment, countless arrows suddenly shot down from the roof of the inn. Those brought by Chen Penji were hit by the arrows before they had time to react. Seeing this scene, Chen Penji's face suddenly darkened. "Who? How dare you interfere in His Majesty's affairs?" After Chen Penji finished speaking, he saw some people in red clothes jumping down from the building. These people were all at the 5th level. After seeing these people, Mu Chongtian was slightly stunned. He actually guessed that the mysterious prince who gave them the Great Return Pill would send people to rescue them, but he didn't expect that the people sent by the other party were actually warriors above the 5th level. It seemed that the prince really valued their Duke Mu's mansion. At this time, Chen Penji said coldly, "Since you dare to interfere in His Majesty's affairs, you should also be prepared to die." Then Chen Penji said loudly, "Come out, everyone, stop hiding." As soon as Chen Penji finished speaking, 2 masters and several warriors appeared behind Chen Penji. Seeing these people, Mu Chongtian smiled and said, "Your Majesty really thinks highly of me. In order to kill me, a useless person, he actually sent 3 masters here." Chapter 54 How could you not lose your power? Seeing that the warriors behind him had appeared, Chen Penji looked at Mu Chongtian in the distance and said, "Teacher, I can't believe that at this time, there is still someone willing to save you. It seems that the teacher doesn't want to appear so loyal and patriotic. If the teacher is truly loyal and patriotic, he should commit suicide immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Penji kicked off his legs and rushed towards Mu Chong. In just a blink of an eye, he was in front of Mu Chongtian. Then he swung the knife. A white light flashed in front of Mu Chongtian. Just when Chen Penji thought Mu Chongtian was certain to die, suddenly, a force spurted out of Mu Chongtian's body, and then, his body was wrapped in a ball of gas. The next moment, Mu Chongtian raised his hand and caught Chen Penji's blade with his bare hands. Seeing this scene, Chen Penji was stunned, as were the 2 Grand Masters behind him and the warriors who came to kill him. They heard that His Majesty gave the male power-dispersing pills to Duke Mu's mansion. The men in Duke Mu's mansion no longer had any kung fu in their bodies. At most, they were stronger and stronger than ordinary people. But judging from the aura released by Mu Chongtian, it was obvious that he was still a master. There is a gap between masters and masters. There are many Grand Masters in Daxia, but why can Mu Chongtian become the so-called king? He was not just as simple as supporting the Xia Emperor's ascension. In the Great Xia Dynasty, there were few people within the realm of the same master who were Mu Chongtian's opponents, so he was able to become the king. Chen Penji said in disbelief, "You, how could you not have lost your power?" Chen Penji's tone was trembling. As Mu Chongtian's student, he had followed Mu Chongtian in many battles. He knew Mu Chongtian's strength very well. "I originally thought that getting rid of Mu Chongtian this time would be a very easy job, and it would make Emperor Xia trust him more, but I didn't expect that Mu Chongtian didn't dissipate his power. What a joke! Mu Chongtian is the god of war. An existence that is said to be invincible within the realm of the same master. When they first arrested Mu Kuogong's family in the capital, even the great master Situ Ce, the national master, came forward in person. Otherwise, how could the Great Xia Dynasty easily capture Mu Chongtian? But now he was told that Mu Chongtian had not lost his power? Isn't this killing yourself? There was a trace of panic on Chen Penji's face. He knew very well that he was no match for Mu Chongtian. If Mu Chongtian had not lost his skills, he would have almost no chance of winning. But at this moment, a Grand Master behind Chen Penji said, "No. Mu Chongtian has not fully recovered his strength. His protective aura is unstable, and at most he can only exert half of the strength of a Grand Master. After all, they are all masters, and they can tell at a glance whether Mu Changtian's strength has fully recovered. Mu Changtian's strength has indeed not fully recovered. Although the Great Return Pill can help Mu Chongtian recover his skills, Mu Chongtian only needs a period of adjustment to return to his peak, but the time is too short after all. There wasn't that much time for Mu Chongtian to recover, so it was pretty good to be able to exert the strength of a half-step master." After hearing the words from the Grand Master behind him, the panic on Chen Penji's face was instantly wiped away, replaced by an unbridled smile. "Teacher! You really shocked this disciple." "Exactly, since you have not lost your skills, teacher, let me, my disciple, experience your strength." As he spoke, Chen Penji suddenly used his arm to pull the knife out of Mu Changtian's hand, and then struck Mu Chongtian with another knife. The sharp sword wind swept towards Mu Chongtian in an instant. This time, Mu Chongtian did not directly catch it, but directly avoided it. At the same time, the two Grand Masters behind Chen Penji also joined the battle. Although Mu Chongtian is at the end of his strength, they will not be careless until Mu Chongtian is dead. After all, Mu Chongtian was the king of the Great Xia Dynasty. In order to kill Zhou Wangtian, the Great Xia Dynasty even sent out its Grand Master. Although Mu Changtian's skills have declined now, he is still not that easy to deal with. Seeing that Mu Chongtian was besieged by three masters, Mu Jingguo and Mu Xingping rushed over, intending to help Mu Chongtian. The two of them only have 8 levels of strength at most, so they are naturally no match for the Grand Master, but they can alleviate the trouble caused by the other two Grand Masters to Mu Chongtian. As Mu Xingping and Mu Jingguo joined the battle, the warriors brought by Chen Penji also took action. After that, the sounds of clashing swords and fighting continued to be heard in the backyard of the inn. Fortunately, those mysterious warriors in red clothes protected the Mu family members. Although Mu Chongtian and the others were suppressed and beaten by the three great masters, Chen Penji and the others had no way of approaching the Mu family members. However, Chen Penji and the others were three masters after all, and the opponent also had several 9th grade masters. Those red-clothed warriors would soon be no match for them. At this time, Mu Chongtian was accidentally hit by one of the masters, and instantly stepped back more than 10 steps, and did not stop until he hit the wall of the courtyard. Seeing that Mu Chongtian was injured, Chen Penji smiled and said mockingly, "Teacher, it seems you are old." Hearing this, Mu Chongtian snorted coldly, and then said, "Chen Penji, even if I die today, I will definitely drag you down." As he spoke, Mu Changtian's aura instantly rose. Chen Penji's expression changed, and he immediately said, "No, he is going to use the blood-burning method. Stop it quickly." Poof. Just when Chen Penji wanted to ask the two masters around him to stop Mu Chongtian from using the blood-burning method, a sword instantly penetrated Chen Penji's body, and Chen Penji did not even have time to release the master's body-protecting energy. Chen Penji tried his best to turn around, trying to see clearly who stabbed him. Before he could turn around, the person who assassinated him stabbed him again behind him. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. A Grand Master on Chen Penji's side immediately yelled, "Wei Chao! What are you doing?" At this time, Mu Chongtian was also confused. He was already preparing to use the blood-burning method to fight Chen Penji and the others. However, a 9th-level warrior suddenly appeared from the crowd and stabbed Chen Penji in the back. What's happening here? Why didn't he understand? At this time, a grandmaster on Chen Penji's side immediately stabbed Wei Chao, who stabbed Chen Penji in the back with his sword. Wei Chao's light kung fu was so good that he borrowed the master's sword in an instant, jumped on his shoulders, and then jumped to the roof. Wei Chao said to Mu Chongtian with a smile on his face, "Mr. Mu, don't use the blood-burning method indiscriminately. If the prince sees that you are seriously injured, we are afraid that we will be punished by the prince." Hearing Wei Chao's words, Mu Chongtian instantly realized that this 9th-level warrior was also a member of the mysterious prince. Who is that mysterious prince, who can actually place such an important person next to Chen Penji? The appearance of Wei Chao further deepened Mu Chongtian's curiosity about the mysterious prince. Chapter 55. It's time for the farce to end. After the Huban army was split, Emperor Xia established the Dragon Guard army. The Dragon Guard army was personally commanded by Emperor Xia, and Chen Penji was just a general who managed it on his behalf. It stands to reason that the Dragon Guard army should be a very strictly selected army, and it would be difficult for other forces to place chess pieces in this army. But just a short time after it was formed, a 9th-grade masterpiece appeared next to Chen Penji. Moreover, this 9th-grade masterpiece belongs to the mysterious prince. This made Mu Chongtian wonder to what extent the mysterious prince had controlled the Great Xia Dynasty. After Chen Penji fell to the ground, his eyes were fixedly waiting for Wei Chao on the roof. He really couldn't believe that Wei Chao was actually the one who stabbed him in the back. Chen Penji's eyes widened to their maximum size, and his 2 eyeballs were filled with red bloodshot eyes. He used all his strength to shout unwillingly, "Wei Chao!" After the words fell, Chen Penji left without even taking a breath. At this time, the Grand Master on Chen Penji's side looked at Wei Chao and said, "Wei Chao, do you know what you are doing? If you disrupt His Majesty's plan, you and everyone in your family will pay the price." Wei Chao just smiled and said nothing. At this time, the air seemed to suddenly freeze, and the surrounding area instantly became quiet. The sound of swords clashing in the courtyard had also become quieter. This was not because Chen Penji and the others were all dead, but that people suddenly felt extremely depressed for some unknown reason. At this time, everyone heard a man's voice coming from the door of the courtyard. "The shadow guards are almost here, and the farce must end." Feeling that something was wrong, a Grand Master immediately said in the direction of the sound, "Who is it?" As soon as the master finished speaking, a ray of cold light struck. Before the master could resist, his head instantly flew into the air. At this time, another Grand Master reacted, and he immediately attacked the figure. However, the next moment, another cold light flashed through, and his head flew into the air. "Kill the master with one sword." Seeing this scene, everyone present was stunned. When the bodies of the 2 Grand Masters brought by Chen Penji slowly fell to the ground, Mu Chongtian finally saw the appearance of the people who came. The man was wearing red clothes and holding a long knife in his hand. After killing 2 people, there was no trace of blood on his knife. The man put the knife directly into the scabbard. Mu Xingping couldn't help but said at this time, Great Master." Mu Jingguo said from the side, "No, he is not a Grand Master. The Grand Master's momentum is even stronger, but his strength is probably close to that of the Grand Master." As soon as Mu Jingguo finished speaking, the man spoke to the air behind him, "Everyone, it's time to clear the place." After he finished speaking, several 9th-grade warriors appeared behind him, but these 9th-grade warriors were very strong. In just a short period of time, they killed all the warriors brought by Chen Penji. Mu Chongtian stood motionless, feeling incredible. Because he knew the person who came. This person turned out to be the owner of Ula restaurant in Beijing. Mu Chongtian liked the food at Ula restaurant very much. Before his daughter married the 9th prince, he often went to Ula restaurant to drink, so he knew the owner of Ula restaurant quite well. Mu Chongtian always believed that Ula restaurant was the property of the 8th prince Lu Chen, so he stopped going to Ula restaurant to drink after Mu Zixuan married the 9th prince. As a result, the person who came to save them today was actually the owner of Ula restaurant? And he didn't know that the owner of Ula restaurant was a strong man who could kill 2 masters in an instant. Not to mention that he has not recovered his strength now, even at his peak, he could not kill 2 grandmasters in an instant. It's enough to show how powerful the owner of Ula restaurant is with swordsmanship. No, he is not just a swordsman. His knife is not simple either. After killing someone, not even a drop of blood was stained. Mu Chongtian has never heard of any kind of knife that can do this. After coming back to his senses, Mu Chongtian said with a smile, I didn't expect that the 8th prince has such a powerful person under his command. Boss Liang, you really hide your secrets. It seems that the prince you are talking about is the 8th prince. Although it is a bit unbelievable, after all, Liang Zong has already appeared here, and Liang Zong is indeed the owner of the restaurant under the name of the 8th prince, so he should be the 8th prince's person. But Mu Chongtian couldn't understand even more why the 8th prince would send someone to save him. You must know that the 8th prince is in the capital. He took such a big risk to save himself. Even if he rescued himself, what would be the use? The 8th prince does not seem to have any military power, right? The 8th prince, a prince without a vassal, only has 1,000 personal guards in the capital. At first, Mu Chongtian thought that the prince wanted to rebel, so he thought of protecting himself and then pulling him to rebel, but he didn't expect that he was still the son of Emperor Xia. To be honest, this made Mu Chongtian feel a little unhappy. After all, the other party was the 8th prince and had a blood relationship with Emperor Xia. How could he trust his son so easily after being tricked by me once? Hearing Mu Chongtian's words, Liang Zong smiled and said, 8th prince? No, 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 the 8th prince is not qualified for me to serve him. Liang Zong's words immediately made Mu Chongtian dumbfounded. Not the 8th prince? Liang Zong, the owner of a restaurant owned by the 8th prince, is not actually the 8th prince's person? Mu Chongtian then asked curiously, then who is the prince you are talking about? Now that we have reached this point, we can surely tell you, right? Liang Zong replied, don't worry, Mr. Mu, you will see him soon. Mu Chongtian smiled and said, your prince is really mysterious. Although we know that Liang Zong's level has definitely not reached the level of the Grand Master, his strength is definitely infinitely close to the Grand Master. The mysterious prince is actually willing to release such a powerful person as an undercover, which proves that his masters are definitely not there will be less. Mu Chongtian now wanted to pry open Liang Zong's head, wanting to see which prince had so many masters and planned so many things. Liang Zong said at this time, Mr. Mu, from today on, the Mu mansion will cease to exist. Having said this, Liang Zong turned to the Jinyaiwei behind him and said, on the way to exile, Duke Mu was assassinated by thieves. At the critical moment, Duke Mu used the blood-burning magic and died together with the 3 masters. Having said this, Liang Zong turned his head, looked at Mu Chongtian and asked, Mr. Mu, what do you think of this result? Of course, Mu Chongtian knew that Liang Zong's intention in making this arrangement was to allow them to change their appearance and live under new identities to avoid being discovered by Emperor Xia. Mu Chongtian said, then I'll trouble Boss Liang. Liang Zong said, Mr. Mu is too polite. This is what I should do. Jin Yiwei then began to take action and quickly reconstructed the crime scene. When the shadow guards arrived at the inn, the entire inn had been engulfed in fire, and only a few soldiers brought by Chen Penji were seriously injured and fell outside the fire scene. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 56 Mu Chongtian's Speculation. In the early morning, a convoy was driving on the bumpy road. The convoy was very quiet, and the only sounds from the few houses on the road were the horses' hooves and wheels. After a night of traveling all night, everyone in the Mu mansion was already tired. At this time, most of the female family members of the Mu mansion closed their eyes and fell asleep. But at this time, the men in Mu mansion could not sleep for a long time. Especially Mu Chongtian and his son. They sat on the carriage and looked at the mountains in the distance, not knowing what they were thinking. At this time, Mu Chongtian suddenly said, "This is the way to Beijun." Hearing this, Mu Jingguo and Mu Xinping, who were already a little tired, instantly became energetic. Mu Xinping immediately asked, "Dad, did you read that correctly?" Mu Chongtian looked at the green mountains in the distance and replied, "I have gone to Beijun many times to resist barbarian invasions. How could I be wrong? This is indeed the way to Beijun." Speaking of this, Mu Chongtian frowned. Last night, Liang Zong didn't tell them where they were going. After they got on the carriage, Liang Zong's people immediately led the way. Because it was too dark at the time, Mu Chongtian didn't see clearly which direction they were walking in. When it was daybreak, Mu Chongtian could see clearly. He discovered many iconic peaks, which he had seen before when he led his army to Beijun to resist the barbarians. He is very familiar with North County, and some of the roads in North County have long been remembered in his mind. After hearing Mu Changtian's words, Mu Xinping guessed and said, "Dad, is it possible that the prince they are talking about is the ninth prince?" Mu Jingguo's tone was trembling, and he obviously couldn't believe what he said. How could they not know who the ninth prince was? Although the ninth prince is already Mu Zixuan's husband, everyone in Mu Qiagong's palace still regards the ninth prince as a lazy and hedonistic good-for-nothing prince. As soon as Mu Xinping finished speaking, Mu Jingguo spoke up and said, "Xinping, what are you thinking about? How could he be the ninth prince? Don't you still know what kind of person he is?" "This," Mu Xinping said after a moment of silence, "that's true, then why did they take us to Beijun? Beijun is the fiefdom of the ninth prince, so the prince of Beijun can only be the ninth prince." Hearing Mu Xinping's words, Mu Jingguo didn't say anything. He just turned to look at his father, hoping that he would know something. At this time, Mu Changtian's brows were furrowed and his expression was a little serious. He thought for a long time before he said, "It is indeed impossible to be the ninth prince, but I suspect that the prince went to Beijun. He probably wanted to discuss something with me in Beijun. Of course, there is another possibility." At this point, Mu Chongtian paused and did not continue. His face became a little more serious again. Seeing his face so gloomy, Mu Jingguo immediately asked, "Dad, is there still that possibility?" Mu Chongtian thought for a moment and said, "It is possible that the person who saves us is not the Prince of Daxia, but the barbarians." As soon as Mu Chongtian said these words, brothers Mu Jingguo and Mu Xinping were stunned for an instant. Mu Chongtian continued, "The barbarians are in the north. They asked us to go to their territory, so naturally we have to pass through Beijun. And they also have reasons for doing this. I know Daxia very well. Winning over me will make it easier for them to attack Daxia in the future." After hearing what Mu Chongtian said, Mu Jingguo quickly said, "Dad, if they are really barbarians, then if we still surrender to them, wouldn't we really become traitors?" Mu Jingguo had a clear sense of right and wrong in his heart, so there was no problem at all for him to betray Emperor Xia. After all, Emperor Xia abandoned them and even wanted their lives. But if they were allowed to betray the entire Daxia, betray the people of Daxia, and then become butchers' knives in the hands of the barbarians, and in turn massacre the people of Daxia, Mu Jingguo would not be able to do it. He did not want to become a sinner of the nation. After hearing his son's words, Mu Chongtian fell into silence and did not speak for a long time. His inner thoughts were actually the same as Mu Jingguo's. If he was just asked to surrender to a certain prince in Daxia, he would definitely not hesitate. But if he were asked to seek refuge with the barbarians, he would be extremely reluctant. Back then, the barbarians invaded Daxia and killed many civilians in Daxia, and how many of his soldiers died at the hands of the barbarians. If he were to join the barbarians and become their lackey, it would be better to let him die. After thinking for a while, Mu Chongtian said, "Okay, it's useless to think about it now. When we get to Beijun, we will know who the mysterious prince they talk about is. I haven't slept all night, so you should close your eyes and get some sleep. It will take many days to reach Bei County." Daxia, Beijing. Royal Palace Garden. After hearing the report from the Shadow Guard commander, Emperor Xia always felt that his information revealed something strange. His face looked very ugly. At this time, the entire imperial garden was extremely quiet, and the only sound that could be heard was the crucian carp jumping out of the water in the lotus pond. After a long while, Emperor Xia finally said, "3 Grand Masters, facing a man whose power was exhausted, were actually dragged to death together by him, haha." Emperor Xia's voice was cold, which invisibly exerted tremendous pressure on the people in the imperial garden. Obviously, Emperor Xia was in a very bad mood at this time. Although there are many Grand Masters in Daxia, it is not easy to cultivate Grand Masters. Killing a dying person means losing 3 Grand Masters, which makes Emperor Xia very happy. At this time, Emperor Xia asked, "I'm very curious as to why Mu Chongtian was able to use the blood-burning technique in the end. Shouldn't his power have been exhausted?" Having said this, Emperor Xia turned to look at the National Master Situ Ce in the pavilion. "National Master, are you sure you sensed that the power in Mu Changtian's body dissipated?" Hearing Emperor Xia's words, Situ Ce knew that Emperor Xia was suspicious of him. He asked, "Your Majesty, do you think I didn't give him the Sangong pill?" Emperor Xia said calmly, "I just want to know why the Sangong pill has no effect on him." Emperor Xia was more suspicious, and he knew that Situ Ce himself wanted to protect Mu Chongtian, so she had to suspect that Situ Ce had played some tricks on him. Situ Ce then said, "I did feel that the power in Mu Changtian's body had dissipated. As for why he was still able to use the blood-burning method, I'm afraid someone gave him the Xiao Huan Dan in prison, which allowed him to partially recover." Skill. Hearing what Situ Ce said, Emperor Xia suddenly remembered that although there were not many elixirs in this world that could restore skills, they still existed. Especially those sects that have done a lot of research on elixirs for restoring skills. At this time, Emperor Xia immediately said to the commander of the Shadow Guards, "Check. Check it for me immediately. I want to see who is so brave and dares to go against me." "Yes, Your Majesty. My subordinates resign." The Shadow Guard commander then turned and left. Looking at the Shadow Guard commander's leaving figure, Xia Huang said to himself, "Mu Chongtian is a good minister of mine. He even helped me solve a problem before he died." The trouble that Emperor Xia was talking about was obviously referring to Chen Penji, Mu Changtian's student. Emperor Xia reused Chen Penji at the beginning mainly to deal with Mu Chongtian. Now that Mu Chongtian was dealt with, Chen Penji had lost his role. Originally, he planned to wait for Chen Penji to come back and find an excuse to get rid of him too. But now it's better, Mu Chongtian and Chen Penji died together. Now Daxia's military power is completely in his hands. With military power, he should do what he wants to do. Chapter 57 The Chu family faces internal and external troubles. Mu Chongtian was assassinated while in exile. Before his death, the news that he used the blood-burning method to drag down 3 masters quickly spread throughout Daxia. With the death of Mu Chongtian, Emperor Xia took complete control of the military power of Great Xia and had millions of soldiers at his disposal. Moreover, all the generals of these armies were single-handedly promoted by Emperor Xia, and most of these generals were loyal to Emperor Xia. Emperor Xia suddenly had so many soldiers in his hands. What did he want to do? What will he do? The major families in Daxia are not fools. For a time, the number of caravans in Daxia increased sharply, especially in the territories of the major vassals, and the number of caravans doubled. Except, of course, North County. The caravan is just a cover for the aristocratic family. Using the caravan to travel around and collude with various forces is what the aristocratic family does. Emperor Xia had even sharpened his sword, so there was no way those aristocratic families would be silent at all. All the major families have the same idea. Since Emperor Xia is dishonest and disobedient, then change to another emperor. Throughout the dynasties, emperors have tried to eliminate aristocratic families. Some emperors used imperial examinations to weaken the foundation of aristocratic families, some emperors restricted aristocratic families in terms of land, and some emperors suppressed aristocratic families in business. But the effectiveness of those methods is still limited. Emperor Xia got rid of the two heavenly kings and completely controlled the military power of Daxia. He obviously lost patience with the aristocratic families. He wanted to use physical methods to directly eliminate the existing aristocratic families. Emperor Xia's actions were so fast and so purposeful that he naturally quickly attracted the attention of the major families, especially the Jiangnan family. Since Chu Yu passed away due to unknown reasons, Chu Xiong has been guarding the capital over the years and has sent many spies to the capital. He will know about any trouble in the capital. After learning that Mu Chongtian was dead and that the military power was in the hands of Emperor Xia, Chu Xiong couldn't sleep well these days, always feeling that the Chu family was in imminent disaster. Chu family, courtyard. Chu Xiong was sitting in the pavilion, looking at the intelligence coming from the capital, with a worried look on his face. At this time, two white-haired old men came to the pavilion, and one of them said, "Brother, you have also seen Emperor Xia's actions. Shouldn't our Chu family be prepared?" After hearing what his second brother Chu Liang said, Chu Xiong was silent for a moment, and then said, "I have sent someone to contact King Qi. I believe there will be results soon." Hearing this, Chu Liang said dissatisfiedly, "Brother, what is the use of King Qi? He is just a loser. Do you still expect him to rebel?" Chu Xiong's idea was to use the vassal king to restrict Emperor Xia, forcing Emperor Xia to give up attacking the aristocratic family, or to encourage the vassal king to rebel, so that Emperor Xia had no energy to deal with the aristocratic family. Of course, if there was a vassal king who could defeat Emperor Xia, then it couldn't be better. King Qi was the vassal king who was most dissatisfied with Emperor Xia. Since Emperor Xia ascended the throne, he had targeted King Qi many times, so the first person Chu Xiong chose to incite rebellion was King Qi. But obviously, the second brother Chu Liang had his own ideas. Chu Liang said at this time, "If you ask me, we should directly find someone to assassinate Emperor Xia. If he dies, all problems will be solved." The third brother Chu Song asked at this time, "If Emperor Xia dies, then who should we support to ascend to the throne?" Chu Liang said matter-of-factly, "It doesn't matter, of course I support the 8th prince." "If you don't support the 8th prince, do you still want to support that loser from Beijing who spends all his time drinking and drinking? Besides, the 8th prince's mother comes from the Wang family, a Jiangnan family. He can't be as whimsical as me and want to attack families like ours, and our Chu family happens to have a good relationship with the Wang family. After the 8th prince ascends the throne, we will send him some girls from the family. If the girls from the Chu family can have children of the 8th prince as soon as possible, it is not impossible to compete for the position of queen." After listening to Chu Liang's words, Chu Song said, "Second brother, why do I feel that the 9th prince is better? If he indulges in pleasure in the palace, wouldn't it be easier for us to control him? Whoever we want him to make as queen, whoever will be made the queen." Chu Liang snorted coldly and said, "You think I haven't thought about it this way? He is just a loser who can't support the wall. If you really choose him, do you think he can balance the interests of the major families? Moreover, the resistance in the court will be greater, and those ministers will not agree. Among the princes, all of them are qualified, but he is not. Don't forget, he is Chu Yu's child, and his relationship with Swanyu Palace is unusual. If he really comes to power, will it be our turn to control him? Chu Song said, "Second brother, what you said makes sense." At this time, Chu Xiong said with a dark face, "Second brother, you have just said that. No matter how much you say, Chu Yu is still my daughter. No matter how we arrange the relationship, she is my daughter first, and then the goddess of Swanyu Palace. Why isn't her son qualified to sit in that position? Besides, you don't really think that Emperor Xia is so easy to assassinate, right? Isn't it too early to start discussing who should ascend the throne now? There is a Grand Master beside Emperor Xia, and apart from Situ Ce, we don't know if there are other Grand Masters secretly protecting him. To succeed in the assassination, I'm afraid it will be even harder than reaching the sky." Chu Liang mocked and said, "Brother, I think you are old and your brain is not flexible anymore. Why do you think I just said that I support the 8th prince? The 8th prince is in the capital now. He can completely assist us in completing our plan to assassinate Emperor Xia." Chu Xiong frowned and said immediately, "No, we absolutely cannot assassinate Emperor Xia now. If the assassination fails, Emperor Xia will definitely use this as an excuse to attack the noble family immediately. We are not sufficiently prepared to take this risk." Now everyone in the court knew that Emperor Xia was going to take action against the aristocratic family, and the aristocratic family also knew that Emperor Xia was going to take action against the aristocratic family, but even if Emperor Xia wanted to eradicate the aristocratic family, he still needed a legitimate reason. Originally, Emperor Xia hadn't found a suitable excuse yet, but at this time, the family sent people to assassinate Emperor Xia. Wouldn't that just give Emperor Xia a reason? Seeing that Chu Xiong was afraid of this and that, Chu Liang snorted coldly and said, "Brother, your courage is really getting weaker and weaker. Emperor Xia's butcher knife is about to fall, and you are still worried about this and that. I think you have to wait for the day when Emperor Xia's million-strong army arrives in Sufeng City, then you will be happy." Having said this, Chu Liang turned around and left. Seeing Chu Liang leaving, Chu Song hurriedly followed, second brother, if you have anything to say, please speak up. The eldest brother is also thinking about the family, so don't be angry." Seeing the two of them singing together, Chu Xiong's expression turned ugly. He was not a fool, how could he not know what Chu Liang and Chu Song were thinking? Chu Song seemed to be talking to the 9th prince just now, but in fact he was talking to Chu Liang. Several of Chu Song's sons married girls from the Wang family, and even the concubines he took were from the Wang family. There was no need to think too much about his position. Needless to say, Chu Liang coveted the position of the head of the family for more than a day or two. Now that the Chu family has fallen into internal and external troubles, Chu Xiong feels even more tired when he thinks that his son is so unsatisfactory and thinks about women every day. Chu Xiong rubbed his forehead, and then said to the woman behind him who had no sense of existence, "King Gli, your sister is in Beijun, you should also go to Beijun. If the Chu family really suffers a disaster one day, there's no need to come back." Upon hearing this, the woman in a green dress behind him said, "Yes, the head of the family." The woman's voice was cold, without any emotion, as if she were a complete killing tool. Chapter 58 King Bai Bei. Chapter 58 Bei, King of the North. As they get closer and closer to Beijun, Mu Qiagong's family becomes more and more nervous. What the female relatives of Duke Mu's mansion want is that they can finally see Mu Zixuan. Especially the Mu family, they have always wanted to know how their daughter is doing in Buwang mansion. But what the men in Duke Mu's mansion were nervous about was whether they would just pass by Beijun and then continue to the north. If they just pass through Beijun, they will go to the territory of the barbarians. If they are asked to betray Daxia, they will definitely not be able to do it. Soon Mu Chongtian and the others discovered that the convoy did not stop after they arrived in Beijun, and they continued to head north. This made Mu Changtian's heart suddenly lift. Is it possible that these people are really the work of the barbarians? Then Mu Chongtian stuck his head out of the carriage, looked at the Jin Yiwei riding outside and asked, "Little brother, where are we going?" The Jin Yiwei soldiers immediately replied, "Mr. Mu, our destination is Yanchenge. It will take a few days to arrive." Hearing the Jin Yiwei soldiers tell them their specific destination, Mu Chongtian breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that he was going to Yanchenge. Then Mu Chongtian retracted his head into the carriage. At this time, Mu Xinping asked, "Dad, I remember that the Northern King is in Yanchenge? Is the mysterious prince they talked about really the Northern King?" Mu Chongtian shook his head and then said, "It can't be him. Yanchenge is the most prosperous city in Beijing. It's not surprising that the mysterious prince would see us in Yanchenge." Mu Chongtian didn't think Lu Chen was such a huge force at all. After all, everyone knew what kind of prince Lu Chen was. A few days later, Beijing, Yanchenge. The Mu Mansion convoy dressed as a caravan slowly entered Yanchenge. After discovering that Yanchenge had arrived, the people in the carriage opened the curtains and looked at everything outside. At this time, Mu Chongtian was closing his eyes to rest. Mu Jingguo reminded, "Dad, we have arrived at Yanchenge." After hearing Mu Jingguo's reminder, Mu Chongtian opened his eyes and looked out the window. Although Yanchenge is the most prosperous city in Beijing, at a glance, you can see the difference between Yanchenge and other cities in Daxia. Most of the people on the road were wearing patched clothes, and they were very patched. Many people had no shoes on their feet and walked barefoot. If I had to find something to praise Beijing, it would be that the eyes of the people are bright and they look very energetic, as if they are full of expectations for the future. At this time, Mu Xinping said, "I didn't expect that Yanchenge, the most prosperous city in Beijing, is still so poor. It seems that it may not be easy for Beijing to develop. I don't know how my little sister is doing in Buwang Mansion." Mu Jingguo said, "Don't worry, although Beijing is poor, Buwangfu is not poor at all. I heard that Buwangfu can earn hundreds of thousands of taels of silver a month by selling perfume and soap." At this moment, Mu Changtian's thoughts were not in the carriage. He just wanted to meet the mysterious prince. He was already planning in his mind what he should do if the other party was a barbarian. At the same time, North Palace. Lu Chen Gang and Wang Qingkai had just finished exercising and were now in the pavilion selecting portraits of women who had taken concubines in the palace. Although Mu Zixuan had already chosen her once, she was Lu Chen's concubine after all, so she still had to show it to Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen didn't particularly care about portraits. Portraits are even more outrageous than modern photoshops, which are based on the original drawings, and the portraits are purely subjective strokes by the artist himself. However, Lu Chen still reluctantly chose some more beautiful portraits of women. Anyway, this was the primary election, and the real concubine selection still required him to see it in person. Without taking a look in person, he wouldn't know how many ratings those women had. At this moment, a guard in brocade clothes entered the courtyard. "Your Majesty, Duke Mu's family has arrived." Upon hearing this, Lu Chen immediately got up from the stone bench. Their family finally arrived, which was a surprise for Mu Zixuan. Then Lu Chen said, "Arrange for us to meet immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." After reporting the situation, the armored guard turned around and left. Mu's motorcade finally stopped at Yanchenge Ula restaurant. After entering the restaurant, a middle-aged man who was 8 feet tall and extremely strong came to Mu Chongtian. Seeing the man in front of him, Mu Chongtian was startled. Another Grand Master. How terrifying is the power under that mysterious prince? In just a short time, they have already met 2 masters. Qin Yushan said at this time, "Mr. Mu, you 3, please come with me." Qin Yushan was naturally talking about Mu Chongtian and his 2 sons. After hearing the words of the man in front of them, Mu Chongtian and the three of them knew that they were probably going to meet the mysterious prince next. When they thought of this, the three of them were extremely excited. Immediately, Mu Chongtian and the others separated from the female members of the Mu family. The female members of the Mu family went to the backyard of the restaurant, while Mu Chongtian and the others followed Qin Yushan to the second floor. However, when they arrived at the private room on the second floor, they did not see the mysterious prince. Qin Yushan said at this time, "Mr. Mu, please wait a moment, our prince will be here soon." Mu Chongtian didn't think much, he just had to wait. Time passed by minute, and after about 2 quarters, the door of the private room was opened. After hearing the movement at the door, Mu Chongtian and the others immediately stood up from their stools. Their eyes were fixed on the door, wanting to see who showed up. However, when the door slowly opened, a familiar face appeared in front of the three of them. Seeing the person coming, Mu Chongtian was immediately dumbfounded. He murmured, "Bei, King of the North." Not only was Mu Chongtian dumbfounded, his 2 sons also stayed where they were. It's not like they don't know who King Bei is. Mu Chongtian still remembered that he had met Bei Wang once when he left the capital. At that time, Bei Wang's mind was still very immature and he didn't even know the political taboos. Such a person with no knowledge or skills at all, and no political acumen at all, actually holds such a huge power in his hands? Mu Chongtian couldn't help but think, could it be that King Bei had been hiding his clumsiness in the past, pretending to be a loser, making people really think that he didn't understand anything? If this is the case, then King Bei is too scheming. King Bei not only deceived them, but also deceived all the people of the Great Xia Dynasty. The three of them didn't think that King Bei was the mysterious prince until they entered Bei County, but in the end, it was King Bei himself who they saw. King Bei has such a deep scheming, and also has such a huge power in his hands, there is no need to guess what he wants to do. Seeing Mu Chongtian and the others looking at him in disbelief, Lu Chen smiled and asked, "Father-in-law, you seem surprised to see me." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Mu Chongtian, his father and his son came back to their senses. They quickly saluted and said, "See the King of the North." Chapter 59. The trees are beautiful in the forest, but the wind will destroy them. After Mu Chongtian finished his salute, he said with a slight embarrassment, "Your Majesty, I didn't expect that you would be the one who saved the Mu mansion in the end." On their way to Beijun, Mu Chongtian and the others had not thought that the mysterious Prince Liang Zong and the others mentioned was the Buwang. After all, Beijun was the fiefdom of the Buwang. But the idea that that mysterious prince is the North King only flashed through their minds, and they quickly denied it in their hearts. However, the person who stood in front of them in the end was King Bei himself. This shocked them extremely. They really couldn't believe that King Bei, who was rumored to be uneducated and dissolute, could hide so deeply. Judging from the fact that King Bei was able to produce the Great Return Pill and that he had such a huge power in his hands, if he participated in seizing the heir, the eldest prince would definitely not be his opponent. At this time, Mu Chongtian and his son had a question in their hearts at the same time. Why did the Northern King still hide his clumsiness when he had such a huge power? If he participates in seizing the heir, and has the power in his hands and the support of the Jiangnan family, then the position in the capital is likely to be his. Now that the King of the North has been driven to Beijun, if he still wants the position in the capital, he will eventually have to raise an army. But Mu Chongtian and the others also saw the conditions in Beijun. If they raised troops in Beijun, it would be difficult to defeat the elite soldiers of Daxia. Even if they win the battle, Daxia will definitely destroy all lives, leaving King Bei with another mess. Lu Chen said at this time, "You all should sit down, don't stand." Having said this, Lu Chen entered the private room, and the guard in brocade clothes at the door then closed the door. After Lu Chen entered the private room, Mu Chongtian asked directly, "My lord, you have such a huge power, why did you hide your clumsiness in the capital in the first place?" Lu Chen said calmly, if the trees are beautiful in the forest, the wind will destroy them. My father-in-law is now in his prime. If he knows that I have such a huge power in my hands, what do you think my father-in-law will do?" Upon hearing this, Mu Chongtian and the others reacted instantly. As a prince, King Bei had such huge power in his hands and had his own people in the army. If Emperor Xia knew about it, he would definitely be suspicious of him. "You, a prince, have been vigorously cultivating your own power and winning over soldiers in the army when your father was still in his prime. What do you want to do?" However, Mu Chongtian still didn't understand. Even if King Bei had a huge power in his hands, there was no need for him to pretend to be a waste. He just had to not reveal his trump card. Although he was confused, Mu Chongtian no longer planned to continue asking. After knowing that King Bei was a very scheming person, Mu Chongtian no longer regarded King Bei as a political novice. He now only believed that King Bei must have done this carefully. King Bei must have a bigger plan. Although the Northern King was also a bloodline of the Xia Emperor, because the Northern King rescued the Mu Mansion, and because Mu Zixuan was the Northern King's princess, Mu Chongtian had no psychological grudge against Lu Chen. Mu Chongtian said at this time, "The King of the North saved our Mu Mansion. If the King of the North needs me in the future, I, Mu Chongtian, will be utterly devastated." Mu Chongtian's words were equivalent to a direct declaration of allegiance to Lu Chen. After hearing what Mu Chongtian said, Mu Xingping and Mu Jingguo quickly saluted and said, "We also swear to follow the Northern King to the death." Lu Chen smiled and said, "We are all a family, so don't say such things." Having said this, Lu Chen looked at Mu Chongtian and asked, "Father-in-law, there is actually a question that I have been confused about, but I can't find anyone to ask it. You just happen to be here, and I want to ask you for advice." When Lu Chen talks to his own people, he never calls himself my king. Using I can shorten the distance between them. However, Mu Chongtian is a relatively conservative person. Although Lu Chen is his son-in-law, he is still a prince. In Mu Chongtian's eyes, Prince Lu Chen's identity is greater than that of his son-in-law. Mu Chongtian still said respectfully, "Your Majesty, please explain." Lu Chen then asked, "It stands to reason that if my father wants to get rid of the aristocratic family, he will definitely need a sharp sword. There is no doubt that you, father-in-law, are the most suitable, but why?" Lu Chen did not continue talking. After all, it involved Mu Chongtian's sadness. Mu Chongtian instantly understood the question Lu Chen wanted to ask. He sighed and replied, Your Majesty has never trusted me. In other words, in his eyes, I am not that sharp sword. Even if it is a sharp sword, it can only be the sword of a noble family. Mu Chongtian originally wanted to call Emperor Xia by his first name, but thinking that King Bei was the son of Emperor Xia, it was not good to call Emperor Xia by his first name in front of him, so he finally called Emperor Xia Your Majesty. At this time, Mu Chongtian thought of something, so he continued, and I suspect that Your Majesty already has a sharper sword in his hand. After hearing Mu Chongtian's words, Lu Chen fell into deep thought. After a while, Lu Chen said, The Mu mansion is gone. I have prepared a new residence for you, but I'm afraid you will need to change your surname in the future. Mu Chongtian immediately said, Thank you, King Bei. It would be good if they could survive. As for changing their surnames, Mu Chongtian didn't care that much. As long as Emperor Xia died, their surnames could be changed back. At this time, Mu Chongtian asked tentatively, My lord, what are your plans after coming to Beijun? From Mu Chongtian's point of view, the Northern King had such a powerful force in his hands that he could not be willing to be an idle prince in Beijun. Mu Chongtian wanted to seize this opportunity. As long as the Northern King ascends the throne and becomes the new Xia Emperor, the Mu mansion can still be as glorious as it once was. Although the Mu family fell to this state because of Emperor Xia, Mu Chongtian did not have much hatred for Lu Chen, the son of Emperor Xia, because this was a political struggle and the interests of his son and father were different. In most dynasties, old emperors exiled their old ministers, and then the new emperor reused the idea of exiling the old ministers. This was an opportunity for the new emperor to show kindness. After the exiled old ministers returned to the court, most of them would not hate the new emperor, but would be grateful to the new emperor. Emperor. Hearing Mu Changtian's question, Lu Chen's lips raised slightly, revealing a smile. I don't have any plans yet. This. Mu Changtian was stunned. He didn't believe what Lu Chen said. King Bei has been hiding in the capital for so many years, and has accumulated such a powerful force in his hands. If he said that King Bei didn't have any plans, no one would believe him. Lu Chen knew that Mu Changtian didn't believe it, so he continued, the time has not come yet, no matter how busy you are, it will be in vain. Mu Changtian realized instantly that King Bei was waiting for a suitable opportunity. He said, how could such a scheming person as Bei Wang settle down in a corner? Mu Changtian immediately said, Your Majesty, if there is ever a need for me in the future, I, Mu Changtian, will definitely fight to the death. Lu Chen said, not later, I need my father-in-law to do me a favor now. Mu Changtian immediately said, Your Majesty, please speak. Lu Chen said, I plan to train a cavalry force in Beijun, but there are no suitable generals. I wonder if you have any ideas, father-in-law. Hearing Lu Chen's words, Mu Changtian felt a little excited. He didn't expect that he would be able to play a role just after coming to Beijun. He quickly stood up and saluted Lu Chen and said, I will train this cavalry as soon as possible. Live up to the prince's expectations. Lu Chen nodded, then stood up and said, okay, let's come here today. I will ask the princess to visit you in your new home later. Having said this, Lu Chen walked towards the door. Mu Changtian and his son saluted again and said, best farewell to the prince. Chapter 60. Is this the true face of King Bei? After Lu Chen left, Mu Changtian and the others instantly breathed a sigh of relief, as if they were relieved. The three of them still felt incredible at this time. That's King Bei, the uneducated and dissolute king of the north. He is actually the mysterious prince who saved the Mu mansion. Mu Changtian laughed at himself at this time, ha ha ha, I didn't expect that I would make mistakes sometimes. Mu Jingguo said from the side, Dad, I still don't understand why King Bei wanted to hide his clumsiness in the capital in the first place. It stands to reason that with the power he has and the support of the Chu family, the crown prince position will most likely belong to him. The northern king had just said before that if the trees are beautiful in the forest, the wind will destroy them, but this does not fully explain the reason for his hidden clumsiness. Hearing his son's question, Mu Changtian pondered for a moment, then stroked his beard and said, how can we guess what King Bei is thinking? But judging from everything Bei Wang has done, it seems that he has never planned to rely on the power of the aristocratic family. Otherwise, after arriving in Beijun, the first thing he should do is to send people to the Chu family and ask the Chu family to help govern Beijun. But as far as I know, there has been no contact between the Chu family and the North Palace for a long time. So I suspect that King Bei's attitude towards the noble family is actually the same as that of Emperor Xia. Upon hearing this, Mu Jingguo and Mu Xinping were stunned. After Mu Xinping came to his senses, he seemed to understand something, and he immediately said, could it be that King Bei deliberately wanted to withdraw from the capital in order to use his majesty to get rid of the aristocratic family, and then wait for all the forces in the capital to be consumed by the fight for the right to inherit the throne? After his death is almost complete, he will return to the capital to inherit the orthodoxy. Mu Changtian said, there is a high probability that this is the reason. The family has been in chaos for a long time. As a prince who can tolerate so much, King Bei must have greater ambitions in his heart. His eyes cannot only see the position of the prince. I suspect that he has set his sights further into the future, on the things he needs to deal with after he takes the throne. If Emperor Xia can solve all the aristocratic families, after King Bei ascends the throne, King Bei will have the final say in the entire Great Xia. This has another biggest benefit for him. If someone says in the future that the royal family is too aggressive, they are only talking about the current Emperor Xia and have nothing to do with King Bei. After hearing Mu Changdian's analysis, the two Mu brothers were stunned. They didn't expect that the northern king, who was once called a waste, actually had such great talent in his heart. If the northern king ascends the throne and becomes the new emperor of Daxia in the future, his ambition will probably not stop at controlling Daxia. According to King Bei's current plan, by the time he ascends the throne, most of the aristocratic families in Daxia will have been wiped out by Emperor Xia. At that time, King Bei will have the final say in Daxia alone. King Bei, a man with great talent and great strategy, had taken control of the entire Great Xia. If he didn't do something important, he would be sorry for his long-term planning. 6. The two brothers of the Mu family no longer dare to think about the direction in which King Bei will take the ship of Daxia after he ascends the throne. They couldn't help but wonder, could it be that what the northern king really wanted to do was to destroy all dynasties and dominate the world? Is Bei Wang's current plan just the beginning? Thinking of this, the two Mu brothers couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. It turns out that this is King Bei's true thoughts. Is this the true face of King Bei? On the carriage back to the North Palace, Lu Chen sneezed constantly, and he even wondered if he had a cold. I am a 9th grade warrior after all, so I shouldn't catch colds so easily, right? Soon, Lu Chen returned to the palace. The first time he entered the palace, Lu Chen went to find Mu Zixuan. Mu Zixuan was taking care of her children in the room. When she saw Lu Chen coming, Mu Zixuan quickly put down Lu Chongfeng. I've met the prince. Lu Chen came to Mu Zixuan, put his arms around Mu Zixuan's waist, raised his hand to scratch her nose, and then said, "My beloved, I have told you so many times, you are my wife, you don't have to worry about it every day. Salute me." Mu Zixuan smiled and said, "The prince is the prince, and it is appropriate for me to salute you." Seeing that Mu Zixuan still said that, Lu Chen stopped continuing the topic and said directly, "My dear concubine, I just prepared a surprise for you. I wonder if you are interested." Hearing this, Mu Zixuan asked in confusion, "Surprise? What surprise?" Lu Chen said with a smile, "If the surprise is revealed, it will not be considered a surprise. I will ask someone to take you to a place, and you will know later." Mu Zixuan said quickly, "Your Majesty, Feng'er hasn't slept yet." Lu Chen glanced at Lu Chongfeng on the bed, and then said, "Let Nanny Xiaoro watch first. You go to that place first." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Mu Zixuan became even more curious. What kind of surprise was it? In the long time since she married into the palace, King Bei had not prepared any so-called surprises for her, but having said that, King Bei was a surprise in itself for her. Originally, when she married into Prince Bei's mansion, she thought her future life would be very miserable. However, she did not expect that Prince Bei had almost no shortcomings except for his lust. Moreover, King Bei has always been very kind to her as the princess, dotes on her, and trusts her, even leaving the palace's property to her to take care of. It was not easy for a woman from a criminal family like her to marry such a good man. How could Mu Zixuan dare to expect any surprises? Mu Zixuan then said, "Well, I'll go and see the surprise that the prince has prepared for me first." Seeing that Mu Zixuan agreed, Lu Chen immediately pulled Mu Zixuan out of the room. Lu Chen then arranged for Jin Yiwei to take Mu Zixuan to the house he prepared for the Mu mansion. On the way to Xin Mu mansion, Mu Zixuan still couldn't help but be curious. She opened the curtain and asked the guard in brocade clothes who sent him off, "What surprise has the prince prepared for me? Do you know?" Hearing Mu Zixuan's question, the guard in golden clothes quickly replied, "Princess, the prince has told his subordinates not to tell you in advance. You will know when you get there. Hearing the answer of the Jinyi guard, Mu Zixuan curled her lips and thought to herself, what on earth could be so mysterious about this surprise? Not long after, Mu Zixuan arrived at the door of Mu Mansion. Because of the sensitivity of the surname Mu, there is no plaque with the surname hanging on the gate of Mu's mansion, it is just a gate. At this time, a guard in brocade clothes said to Mu Zixuan in the carriage, "Princess, we have arrived." Hearing this, Mu Zixuan immediately got off the car. Seeing the gate in front of her, Mu Zixuan was even more puzzled. Why did the prince ask her to come to this place? At this time, a guard in brocade came to the door and said to the servant guarding the door, "Go in and inform your master that the princess is here." When the servant heard this, he quickly ran into the mansion. Mu Zixuan came to the door of Mu Mansion at this time. When the servants of Mu Mansion saw Mu Zixuan, they all immediately saluted and said, "I have met the princess." Mu Zixuan said calmly, "Get up." She was a little absent-minded now, she just wanted to know what surprise Lu Chen had prepared for her. At this moment, a familiar woman's voice came from not far away. "Zi, Zixuan." Chapter 61. The second child is born. After hearing the sound, Mu Zixuan immediately looked in the direction of the sound. Seeing this, Mu Zixuan froze on the spot. She never thought that she would be able to see her mother again in this life. From the day she married Lu Chen, she had been prepared to never return to the capital or see her relatives. But she didn't expect that just over a year later, she would see her mother again. Mu Zixuan was extremely moved. It turned out that this was the surprise that the prince said. This is indeed a big surprise for her. At this time, Mu Zixuan's tears couldn't help but flow down. After seeing her daughter, Mrs. Mu was also very excited, and she quickly ran to Mu Zixuan. Mother and daughter immediately hugged each other tightly. Mu Zixuan cried, and Mu Shi also cried. Mu Zixuan cried because she finally saw her relatives, and Mu Shi cried because the Mu family had experienced a life and death crisis. She thought she would never see her daughter again. After a while, Mu Zixuan wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. She was about to comfort her mother, but she found Mu Chongtian and the others standing not far away. Mu Zixuan realized that not only her mother had come to Beijun, but her father had also come, and her two brothers had also come. Even some of the servants of Mu Mansion are here. How is this going? No matter how stupid Mu Zixuan is, she can still realize that something might have happened in Mu Mansion when she saw this scene before her. Mu Chongtian was the duke of the country, and he also held military power. Although his military power had been taken back, it was impossible for the emperor to let him leave the capital. As a result, their family ended up in Beijun. It was obvious that something had happened to the Mu family. Mu Zixuan immediately asked, "Mom, what's going on? Why did you all come to Beijun?" Mu Chongtian sighed, and then said, "Zixuan, please come in first, and we will slowly tell you about the affairs of the capital." Mu Zixuan nodded and followed them to the living room of Mu Mansion. Afterwards, Mu Chongtian told Mu Zixuan everything that happened in the capital and on their way to exile. Only then did Mu Zixuan know what happened in the Mu Mansion. At this time, Mu Zixuan did not blame Lu Chen for not telling her about this at all. She also understood why Lu Chen kept it from her. She had just given birth to a child when the Mu family's accident happened, and her body was relatively weak. If he had heard about Mu's house at that time, he would definitely have been hit. At this time, Mu Zixuan was even more grateful to Lu Chen. She never thought that one day it would be King Bei who saved their whole family. At the same time, Mu Zixuan also felt extremely lucky. If she had not married the Northern King, it is very likely that she and the Mu family would be gone. After staying in Mu's mansion for about 2 hours, Mu Zixuan returned to the palace. At this time, Lu Chen was in the study looking at Jin Yiwei's information. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door in the study. Your Majesty, can I come in? Lu Chen put down the information, then stood up and said, come in. As soon as Mu Zixuan opened the door, Lu Chen asked with a smile, my dear concubine, what do you think of the surprise I prepared for you? Do you like it? As soon as Lu Chen finished speaking, Mu Zixuan threw herself into Lu Chen's arms. Feeling the warm fragrance of nephrite in his arms, Lu Chen patted Mu Zixuan's jade back in a comforting manner. Mu Zixuan sobbed and said, Your Majesty, thank you for saving our family. Lu Chen smiled slightly, you are my beloved concubine, and I don't want to see you sad after losing your loved one. This is what I should do. Lu Chen said while continuing to pat Mu Zixuan's back, okay, don't cry. The whole family in the Mu family is fine, and they have come to Beijing. If you want to see your relatives in the future, you can also, it's easier. Having said this, Lu Chen pushed Mu Zixuan away slightly, and then used his fingers to scrape away the tears from the corners of her eyes. At this time, Mu Zixuan's face was rosy, the beauty was in tears, and her charming appearance was even more lovable. Mu Zixuan looked at Lu Chen in front of her. She didn't know how to express her gratitude. She stared into Lu Chen's eyes with expressions on her face. Seeing Mu Zixuan's appearance, Lu Chen couldn't help it anymore, so he kissed her directly. Mu Zixuan did not resist. She had not developed a relationship with Lu Chen for a long time since she became pregnant. In addition, her gratitude to Lu Chen exploded because of the incident in Mu's house, which made her eager to get Lu Chen's deep love. Originally, Lu Chen didn't like to cultivate relationships with his wives and concubines in the study. After all, this was where he worked. He just had to catch Wang Qingkai, a slave girl, and clean her up occasionally. But, the atmosphere has already been set up to this point, so there is nothing more to say. The host cultivates a relationship with Mu Zixuan once, and the experience value of the qi refining technique will be increased by 20, and the experience value of the rejuvenation hand will be increased by 20. Congratulations to the host for gaining another heir. As a reward, he will be rewarded with 200 122 mm howitzers, 1,000 artillery shells, and cement manufacturing technology. The more children you have, the greater the reward will be. Please keep up your efforts and produce more heirs. Lu Chen was stunned for a moment when he heard the system prompt tone at the back. He was still having a sweet time with his beloved concubine, but he didn't expect that his concubine would give birth to a child for him at this time. Seeing that Lu Chen had stopped moving, Mu Zixuan, with a spring in her eyes, turned to look at Lu Chen and asked, "Husband, what's wrong?" It was at this time that Mu Zixuan would call Lu Chen husband, not only husband, but also good brother and good husband. Lu Chen raised his hand, gently scraped the sweat from Mu Zixuan's white forehead, and replied, "Xiao Xiao must have given birth." Hearing this, Mu Zixuan suddenly woke up and said immediately, "Your Majesty, let's go over and take a look immediately." Mu Zixuan is not the kind of person who doesn't care about the important and the important. At this time, it is obviously not the time for pleasure. Lu Chen said, "Well, let's clean up and go over." Then the two simply packed up and headed to the north courtyard where Zhou Xiaoxiao was. At this time, the north hospital was already busy. Zhou Xiaoxiao had already given birth. She was lying on the bed limply, her face was pale and her whole body was covered in sweat. Lu Chen came to Zhou Xiaoxiao's bedside and sat down, then held her hand and said, "Xiao Xiao, you gave birth to a baby, why didn't you send someone to notify me?" If it weren't for the system prompt, he wouldn't have known that Zhou Xiaoxiao had given birth. Zhou Xiaoxiao forced a smile and said, "The prince is very busy recently, and I don't want to disturb the prince." Mu Zixuan said from the side, "Sister, the prince will not mind." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Xiao Xiao, you must remember to notify me when you have children in the future, Do you understand? Hearing this, Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned for a moment. She had just given birth, and the prince told her about giving birth to a child next time. At this time, Zhou Xiaoxiao couldn't help but have a blush on her pale face. Seeing that she was so weak, Lu Chen immediately mobilized his spiritual energy and used his rejuvenating hands to treat Zhou Xiaoxiao. The next moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao felt extremely comfortable all over his body, and the pain and fatigue on his body disappeared instantly. After seeing the faint green light emanating from Zhou Xiaoxiao's body, Music Xuan, Chu Yukan, and others were stunned. Chapter 62 Barbarian Movement. Chu Yukan had long heard from Lu Chen that he was destined to be immortal, so Chu Yukan would not be surprised that Lu Chen would use immortal magic. But knowing is knowing, seeing it with your own eyes is another matter. At this time, Zhou Xiaoxiao, who was lying on the bed, let out a sound. After a while, Zhou Xiaoxiao stared at Lu Chen closely with her beautiful eyes and said, "My lord, what did you just do? Why did I turn up? I feel so comfortable and my body doesn't hurt at all." Hearing Zhou Xiaoxiao's words, Music Xuan suddenly thought of when she gave birth to a child. Her body did not emit green light at that time, but when she came into contact with Lu Chen's body, her whole body felt very comfortable. Within a few days, her body returned to what it was before giving birth. At first, she thought it was because she had a better constitution, but now it seems that Lu Chen may have used a special method to treat her. Lu Chen did not answer Zhou Xiaoxiao's question immediately, but waited until the color returned to her face before he said, "This is my unique treatment method that can help you recover as soon as possible." As soon as Lu Chen finished speaking, Chu Yukan immediately turned to the midwife and maids of the palace in the room and said, "No one is allowed to tell anyone what happened today." Seeing that Chu Yukan's face was so serious and her tone was so strong, the midwives and maids in the room quickly lowered their heads and said, "Yes, Mrs. Chu." They had never seen such a treatment method before. Obviously, this was not a treatment method possessed by ordinary humans, but a legendary magical technique. The midwives and maids in the room were extremely excited when they thought that their prince knew magic. In the past, they had only heard about the existence of immortals, but now they actually saw a person who knew the magic of immortality with their own eyes, and it was the prince they served. How could they not be excited? This is to serve an immortal, not an immortal fate that ordinary people have. At this time, Zhou Xiaoxiao sat up from the bed, and Lu Chen quickly supported her. She was now back to where she was before giving birth, and her health was no longer serious. Then she hugged the child next to her and looked at it carefully. "My lord, I only gave you one daughter." There was a look of regret on Zhou Xiaoxiao's face. She could see Lu Chen's love for Lu Chongfeng. She always thought that Lu Chen liked boys, so she felt a little pity after giving birth to a daughter. This is the case in this era. Mother is more valuable than her son. Only by giving birth to a son can a woman's status be improved. Lu Chen looked at the daughter in Zhou Xiaoxiao's arms and said with a smile, "Xiao Xiao, to me, sons and daughters are almost the same. In my palace, whatever a son has, a daughter will also have. Although a daughter may not get as much as a son, I will never treat any of my children badly, so you don't have to worry." After hearing what Lu Chen said, Zhou Xiaoxiao felt relieved. Music Xuan reminded from the side, "Your Majesty, the child doesn't have a name yet. Please give the child a name." Lu Chen thought for a moment and then said, "Let's call her Lu Huan Huan. I hope she can grow up happily." Zhou Xiaoxiao muttered, "Huan Huan. Huan Huan, Prince, this is a good name." At this moment, a maid's voice suddenly came from outside. "Your Majesty, Commander Qin is looking for you. He said there is something very important. I hope you will go to the study quickly." Zhou Xiaoxiao just gave birth to a baby. Lu Chen was supposed to accompany her at this time, and the maids in the palace were also more sensible. If it wasn't something particularly important, she wouldn't be able to disturb her at this time. Chu Yukan saw that Lu Chen's face became a little serious, so she immediately said, "Chener, since Commander Qin is looking for you, there must be something important. You can go first. We can just stay with Xiao Xiao here." Lu Chen said, "Okay, I'll leave first." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chen turned around and left Zhou Zioxio's room and headed to his study. When Lu Chen came to the study, Qin Yushan was already waiting for him. After Lu Chen opened the door, he asked, "Commander Qin, what happened?" Qin Yushan quickly took out the bamboo tube in his hand, then took out the sheepskin rolled into a cylinder, opened it, handed it to Lu Chen and said, "Your Majesty, the barbarians in the north are moving." Upon hearing this, Lu Chen's brows instantly furrowed into the character Chuan. After Lu Chen came to Beijun, he was not afraid at all of the assassinations by the young people in the capital, nor was he afraid of the aristocratic families in Beijun. What he is most worried about and pays most attention to is always the barbarians north of Beijun. The news of the barbarian movement made Lu Chen nervous instantly. If the barbarian army moves south, Beijun will be the first to bear the brunt, and the cities in Beijun will inevitably be bloodbathed by the barbarians. The reason why Beijun has not been able to develop and has always been so poor is because barbarians go south to plunder from time to time. After Lu Chen picked up the parchment scroll in Qin Yushan's hand and looked at it, he fell silent and didn't speak for a long time. The information on the parchment only said that the barbarians had begun to gather and that they had not yet formed a large army. It would take at least 2 months for them to complete their gathering. After a while, Qin Yushan saw that Lu Chen did not speak, so he took the initiative to say, "Your Majesty, our people found out that this time the barbarians went south not just to plunder food, but to completely occupy Beijun. The barbarian royal court plans to establish a kingdom and make Yanqing their capital." Hearing this, Lu Chen couldn't hold it back and sneered and said, "They occupied Beijun and came to Beijun to establish a country. Wherever I go, I have a good idea." Lu Chen was the vassal king of Beijun. If he lost his fiefdom, he would still be considered a vassal king. Qin Yushan reminded at this time, "Your Majesty, judging from the assembly order of the barbarians from the royal court this time, the barbarians will attack Beijun with at least 300,000 cavalry. There are currently only 30,000 soldiers in Beijun, and most of them are in Yanqing. They cannot stop the attack of the barbarian army. I'm afraid we have to make plans early." After hearing Qin Yushan's reminder, Lu Chen fell into silence again. There is a difference between a large-scale war and a small-scale assassination. If an assassin comes to the palace to assassinate someone, a few grenades can blow them up and make them cry for their parents. If the barbarians really came with 300,000 cavalry, it would definitely be a dark place. Moreover, the reason why the Xia Dynasty has always been unable to deal with the barbarians is because the barbarians are basically cavalry. When the cavalry attacks, they advance very fast. Before the Xia Dynasty's army has set up a defense line, others come over. And when the Xia army's support arrived and they were about to counterattack, the barbarian cavalry retreated like a wave, and they basically couldn't catch up. For so many years, the Xia Dynasty's method of dealing with the barbarians has always been defensive. However, the purpose of the barbarians this time is to occupy Beijun, so they should not retreat after seeing the arrival of Daxia's army like before. But in this case, even if Beijun is defended, the lives of all living beings will be ruined and mourning will be everywhere. If all the people in Beijun were killed by the barbarians, wouldn't he, the prince, become a bear commander? Chapter 63, No Need to be Polite, Mr. Zhou. Lu Chen looked at the parchment in his hand and said nothing for almost a quarter of an hour. This was the real crisis he encountered since arriving in North County. In fact, if he could not withstand the barbarian attack and simply abandoned his fiefdom and returned to the capital, he would at most be punished and not die. But once he voluntarily abandoned his fiefdom and fled back to the capital alone, his reputation as a prince would really plummet, and it would be difficult to recover. A king who abandons his own people and his own territory will be nailed to the pillar of shame in history. But if he doesn't leave, then he will face a very real problem. 30,000 versus 300,000, how to fight? And it's infantry versus cavalry. There are exactly 13 cities in the 13 counties of Beijing, and 30,000 soldiers cannot defend them at all. And it was difficult for him to know from which direction the barbarians would attack. Seeing that Lu Chen remained silent, Qin Yushan stopped speaking and just stood quietly next to Lu Chen. For a moment, it was eerily quiet in the study, and even the sound of mosquitoes seemed extremely loud. Lu Chen thought of the 122 mm howitzer at this time. 122 mm howitzers could play some role. And no one in this world has ever seen such a terrifying weapon, so it can catch the opponent by surprise. But the key to the problem is that the cavalry is dispersed and highly mobile. What if the opponent sees that they have such a terrifying weapon in their hands and just turns around and runs away? Thinking of this, Lu Chen was stunned for a moment. Wait, wasn't he worried about how to defend Xiaobei County? Why now he is worried that the barbarians will escape? Thinking of this, Lu Chen couldn't help but reveal an evil smile. If all these 300,000 cavalrymen could be gathered in one place, maybe it would not be impossible to fight 300,000 against 300,000? But, would the barbarians be so obedient? If the barbarians send out so many cavalry at once, they will inevitably divide their troops. It is impossible to attack a city with 300,000 cavalry. Unless there is a place or something that can attract them to attack with 300,000 cavalry. After Lu Chen thought for a while, he felt that he was not made for fighting, and professional matters still needed to be left to professionals. He was thinking here alone, and even after thinking for a long time, he might not come up with a good solution. He had never been on the battlefield in his previous life, and he had never fought in this life, so there was no use in dreaming here. No matter how much you think about it, in the end it's just talk on paper. Thinking of this, Lu Chen said to Qin Yushan, tomorrow morning, summon the important generals and county guards from North County to come to the palace. Qin Yushan instantly understood what Lu Chen meant. Lu Chen obviously planned to call them together to discuss countermeasures before making a decision. At the same time, Bei Hualu. In the fragrant room, a graceful figure loomed. Wang Qingkai was taking a bath in the tub. At this time, a maid said from behind the curtain, "Master, the people from the Blood Moon Tower have arrived." Hearing this, Wang Qingkai immediately got up from the tub. Water droplets all over her body kept sliding down against her white jade body. Her whole body was like a hibiscus emerging from the water. After Wang Qingkai got dressed, she came to the third-floor pavilion of Beiwa building. At this time, a young man in white clothes was standing on the edge of the railing, looking in the direction of the North Palace. This situation reminded Wang Qingkai of a person. The former deputy owner of the Blood Moon Tower seemed to like standing there and looking in the direction of the palace. After Wang Qingkai entered the attic, he immediately said, "Master Zhou, you are finally here. I have wanted to leave this ghost place of Yanchinch for a long time." Hearing this, the young man in white looked back at Wang Qingkai with a faint smile on his face. "Thank you for your hard work, Miss Wang." Zhou Hanwen was different from the hall master of the Blood Moon Tower. He was dressed in white and looked like a handsome young man, just like a frail scholar. But he is not weak at all, he is a true master. Zhou Hanwen asked at this time, "Miss Wang, I heard that the Northern Palace is preparing to take a concubine. I wonder if this is the case." Wang Qingkai replied, "It is true, but why did Master Zhou ask this question? Does Master Zhou intend to send a female assassin to sneak into the palace and assassinate King Bei?" Having said this, Wang Qingkai showed a bitter smile on his face, pretending to be unwilling to recall something and said, "Master Zhou, if you want to do this, I suggest you forget it. Chu Yukan is already half Grandmaster Bulletin, and she followed King Bei every day, and even when King Bei had sex with his wives and concubines, she was outside listening. If we just sent a female assassin to get close to King Bei, Chu Yukin might have discovered the clues before she even got to King Bei. Our Bei Hualu assassin was killed by Chu Yukin alone. I suspect she will become a Grand Master in a few years. Hearing Wang Qingkai's words, Zhou Hanwen frowned slightly. I did have the idea of sending a female assassin to get close to the Northern King just now, but after hearing what Miss Wang said, it seems that if you want to assassinate the Northern King, you can only lure the Northern King out. It would be best if he could be separated from the mysterious master. At this point, Zhou Hanwen's brows widened again, and then he stared at Wang Qingkai with a smile on his face. Miss Wang, I heard that King Bei is very lustful. I wonder if he is interested in you. Wang Qingkai replied, King Bei has indeed been thinking about my body. For the mission, I have been hanging on to him. If Master Zhou needs me for anything, just ask. Zhou Hanwen said, then please ask Miss Wang to lure King Bei to Beihua Tower. This way we will be more likely to succeed in the assassination. Wang Qingkai said, of course there is no problem with this, but even if I let him come to Beihua Tower alone, I am afraid that the mysterious master and Chu Yukin around him will still follow him. Zhou Hanwen said with a smile, if we can lure those two people out of the palace, it will be a good thing for our Blood Moon Tower. I'm going to prepare a surprise for King Bei. Zhou Hanwen is not the kind of person who is stubborn. If he wants to take revenge on King Bei, he doesn't necessarily have to kill King Bei immediately. If the two mysterious masters and Chu Yukin could be lured out of the palace, Sui Yulu could enter the palace and kill them. He wanted King Bei to see the corpses of his wives and concubines with his own eyes. Moreover, Sui Yulu came to Beijun this time for another important purpose, which was to obtain soap perfume and the method of making soap. As long as they can lure out the mysterious master, they will have enough time to steal the method of making soap and perfume from Buwangfu. In Zhou Hanwen's opinion at this time, Buwang Mansion only had one Grand Master who was slightly more powerful. Without that Grand Master, Buwang Mansion would be a lamb to be slaughtered. At this time, Wang Qingkai raised the corners of his mouth slightly, forming a weak arc on his lips, and said with a slight smile, in that case, I will let King Bei come to Beihua Tower tonight. After hearing what Wang Qingkai said, Zhou Hanwen said politely, then I'll trouble Miss Wang. Wang Qingkai said, Master Zhou, there's no need to be polite. This is what I should do. Chapter 64. That's an army of 300,000 people. After night fell, Lu Chen stayed in his study and repeatedly checked the map of Daxia, especially the terrain of Beijun. Although the map was hand-drawn by soldiers, it still has a certain reference value. Lu Chen was thinking at this time that if he wanted to maximize the effectiveness of the howitzer, the best way would be to lure all the barbarians' 300,000 cavalry into a narrow terrain. At that time, another pocket tie will be done, so that the barbarian cavalry will have no way to escape. Of course, his current plan is just on paper, and the specific operation is definitely not an ordinary difficulty. For example, whether the barbarians will be fooled and whether they will follow their thinking all depends on the barbarian generals. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the study. Chener, can I come in? Hearing Chu Yukin's voice, Lu Chen said absently, well, come in. Chu Yukin then entered the study room and saw that Lu Chen's eyes had been staring at the map on the desk. In addition, Lu Chen had been shutting himself in the study room after meeting Qin Yushan. Chu Yukin knew that there must be some major crisis coming. Chu Yukin asked worriedly, Chener, what happened? Chu Yukin was not an outsider, and Lu Chen had no intention of hiding it from her, so he replied, the barbarian royal court issued a summons order to summon an army of 300,000 people to go south, occupy Beijun, and then establish a country in Beijun, and use Yancheng as their capital. Hearing this, Chu Yukin's brain froze. In this world, large-scale wars cannot be controlled by a single master or a few strong men. If the 300,000 cavalrymen really go south, the people in Beijun will definitely not be able to defend it. It's no wonder that Lu Chen didn't want to eat or drink tonight and stayed in the study. Chu Yukin asked at this time, "Chener, is the news accurate?" Lu Chen nodded. "This is the information that Jin Yiwei sent back from the grassland." Chu Yukin fell into silence. When the Blood Moon Tower sent people to assassinate Lu Chen, she couldn't even protect him, let alone protect the palace among 300,000 cavalry. Chu Yukin also understood that this kind of thing was obviously beyond her control. Lu Chen said at this time, "Aunt Chu, I plan to transfer Zixuan and the others to Anping City, and then I will lead an army of 30,000 to fight the barbarian cavalry in Yanchinj." Anping City is also a city in Beijun, but Anping City is further south. If Beijun is really lost, Mu Zixuan and the others can leave Beijun and return to the capital as soon as possible. Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin was stunned for a moment, and then said quickly, "Chener, you absolutely must not. That's 300,000 cavalry. How can the 30,000 soldiers in Beijun be a match for the barbarian cavalry?" Although Chu Yukin had never been on the battlefield, she also knew that the barbarians' 300,000 cavalry were actually 300,000 cavalry. Normally, when the Xia Dynasty or other dynasties use troops abroad, they always claim to have hundreds of thousands of troops, or millions of troops. But these so-called armies of hundreds of thousands and millions of people have a lot of water content. The logistics of the army account for most of it, and there may not even be half of the soldiers who can actually be used in combat. But the barbarian soldiers are different. Each of their cavalry can fight. If they claim to have 300,000 cavalry, it means that they have an actual 300,000 fighting soldiers. Chu Yukin really couldn't imagine that if 300,000 barbarian cavalry troops came to the city, how could Lu Chen defend the 30,000 soldiers from Beijun? Seeing Chu Yukin so flustered, Lu Chen showed a confident smile. "Aunt Chu, have you forgotten that I have a destiny?" Chu Yukin did not feel relieved because of Lu Chen's words. She continued, "Chener, I know that you are destined to be immortal, but with your current strength, you cannot withstand an army of 300,000 people. And there must be many masters in the barbarian army, even great masters." Lu Chen said calmly, "What I mean is that I have a more terrifying weapon in my hands." This. Hearing what Lu Chen said, Chu Yukin suddenly remembered the mysterious weapons Lu Chen used before. If Lu Chen had a large number of weapons of that type, or if the palace could produce similar weapons, then it would not be impossible to fight 300,000 against 300,000. Chu Yukin asked curiously, "Chener, can the weapon you mentioned really withstand the charge of the barbarian cavalry?" Lu Chen looked at the map and did not answer Chu Yukin's question directly, but asked, "Aunt Chu, do you know what I am most worried about right now?" Chu Yukin looked down at the map and said nothing. Since Lu Chen had already said that he would lead 30,000 soldiers to confront the barbarians' 300,000 cavalry head-on, what Lu Chen was worried about was naturally not the barbarian troops approaching the city. If Lu Chen wasn't even worried about barbarian troops approaching the city, Chu Yukin really couldn't think of anything else that Lu Chen should worry about. Lu Chen continued at this time, "What I'm worried about is that the barbarian cavalry will escape. We can't completely keep the 300,000 barbarian cavalry." Chu Yukin. Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin suddenly felt that her mind was a little hard to turn around. Not only do you want to resist the 300,000 barbarian cavalry going south, but you also want to completely defeat these 300,000 cavalry, and you also want them all to stay? If this was said to anyone, I'm afraid people would think that King Bei was frightened after hearing the news that the barbarians were going south. That's an army of 300,000 people. And they are cavalry. Let's not say whether they can defeat these 300,000 cavalry. Trying to keep 300,000 cavalry is tantamount to wishful thinking. At this time, Chu Yukin sighed and said, "Chener, I'm just a woman, and I don't know much about war. I just hope that you can be safe." At this time, Lu Chen looked up at Chu Yukin, whose eyebrows were slightly furrowed and her face was full of anxiety. He smiled and said, "Aunt Chu, don't worry, if we really lose to the barbarians, I will also find a way to escape. It is not too difficult for me to escape from the barbarian siege." Chu Yukan said, "Then when do you plan to send Zixuan and the others to Anping City?" Lu Chen said, "The sooner the better, I need to prepare in advance." At this time, Lu Chen looked into Chu Yukan's eyes and continued, "Aunt Chu, I hope you can leave with Zixuan and the others and help me protect them." Chu Yukan did not refuse Lu Chen's request this time because she knew that she would not be able to play a big role in such a large-scale war. "Okay, if Beijun is really lost, I will take Zixuan and the others back to the capital. You can just rest assured and fight the barbarians in Yancheng." Seeing that Chu Yukan agreed, Lu Chen lost another worry. At this time, the maid's voice sounded at the door. "Your Majesty, there is an urgent message from the Imperial Guard." Lu Chen said, "Come in." Then the maid entered the study and handed the letter in her hand to Lu Chen. Lu Chen opened it, glanced at it, and said to himself, "It seems that there is still a little trouble that needs to be solved before fighting against the barbarian army heading south." Chapter 65 Blood Moon Tower Attacks. After hearing what Lu Chen said, Chu Yukan on the side immediately asked, "Chener, what happened again?" Lu Chen replied, "The owner of the Blood Moon Tower came to Yancheng in person. He wanted King Kai to lead me to Beihua Tower. If I was accompanied by the so-called mysterious master, the people from the Blood Moon Tower would come directly to the palace. Bloodbathed the palace. If I didn't have that Grand Master by my side, they planned to kill me first in Beihua Tower, and then use me to lure out the mysterious master." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukan frowned slightly, and then she snorted coldly and said, "Suiyu Tower is so bold, assassinating a vassal king again and again." Having said this, Chu Yukan looked at Lu Chen, "Chener, what are you going to do?" Lu Chen said calmly, "It's time to solve the problem of Blood Moon Tower. It's okay to kill me. If you want to touch my wife and children, then they should all go down to see the King of Hell." Lu Chen's words were calm, but his tone was full of murderous intent. He was really angry this time. His system determined that his women were his weaknesses. If they wanted to touch his weaknesses, then the other party would not be able to live. Lu Chen continued, "Getting rid of the Blood Moon Tower is just the beginning. The people behind the scenes are still there. Without the Blood Moon Tower, other assassin organizations are coming. It's time to give the people behind the scenes a warning." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukan instantly understood what Lu Chen meant. Lu Chen was planning to attack a certain prince in the capital. Naturally, Chu Yukan would not stop Lu Chen. After all, the prince sent assassins to kill Lu Chen again and again, which no one could bear. However, Chu Yukan still reminded, "Chener, now that the barbarians are moving south, if you want to attack someone in the capital, you must have your men do it cleanly, otherwise if your father finds out, he will be very there may not be troops sent to support you." Lu Chen said, "Don't worry, Aunt Chu, I still know the pros and cons." Then Lu Chen said to the maid outside the study, "Zioxiu, go and call Commander Qin." The maid's voice came from outside the door, "Yes, Your Majesty." After the maid left, Lu Chen said to Chu Yukan with a smile on his face, "Aunt Chu, I will trouble you to go to Beihua Tower later." Chu Yukan instantly understood what Lu Chen wanted to do. She wanted the people in the Blood Moon Tower to think that she and the Grand Master followed Lu Chen to the Beihua Tower, and then lured the assassins from the Blood Moon Tower to come to the palace to bloodbath the palace. Chu Yukan said, "Okay, Chener, you have to be more careful." Although she knew that Lu Chen's strength was no longer what it used to be, Chu Yukan would still subconsciously care about Lu Chen. After all, it was Chener who she had watched grow up. Now that there are Jinyue, the various actions of the palace are much faster. Not long after Qin Yushan came to the palace, he asked the Jinyue to prepare an ambush in the palace. As long as the assassins from Blood Moon Tower dare to come at that time, they will never come back. Although there is a Grand Master in the Blood Moon Tower, Qin Yushan is also a Grand Master, and Qin Yushan is not an ordinary Grand Master. There is still no big problem in dealing with a small Grand Master in the Blood Moon Tower. Audience. In order to pretend to be more respectable, Lu Chen specially sent someone to Mu's mansion and told Mu Chongtian that he had something very important and asked him to come to the palace. Mu Chongtian was very happy when he heard that King Bei had assigned him a task so soon. He had things to do when he first arrived in Beijun, which meant that King Bei valued him very much. What he was afraid of now was that King Bei would always leave him alone. A general who is not reused by the king has no value. It's time for him to show his worth. Then Mu Chongtian dressed up carefully according to Lu Chen's request. He looked like a knight-errant, wearing a bamboo hat and covering his face so that people couldn't see clearly who he was. When Mu Chongtian came to the palace full of enthusiasm, thinking that Lu Chen was going to give him an important task, Lu Chen said to Mu Chongtian, "Father-in-law, please go to Beiwa Tower and pretend to be the palace. The mysterious master of the palace, help me divert the attention of the Blood Moon Tower assassins and make them think that the mysterious master of the palace has left the palace, so as to attract them to attack the palace." Hearing this, Mu Chongtian was stunned for a moment, diverting the assassin's attention? This is something important. Lu Chen also asked his servants to tell him that it was a very important matter, but this is the result? Although he felt a little disappointed, Mu Chongtian still accepted the order and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Having said this, Mu Chongtian asked curiously, "Your Majesty, how many assassins did Blood Moon Tower send to assassinate you this time? Don't you need my help?" Mu Chongtian still wanted to fight for it. Although he knew that Lu Chen had many strong men, he was still a master after all, and a master could play a greater role. Lu Chen smiled faintly, and then said, "There are only a few assassins who can solve it quickly. I don't need your help from my father-in-law yet." Seeing that Lu Chen had said this, Mu Chongtian couldn't bear to insist on it, so he had to follow Lu Chen's request and follow a fake prince to Beiwa Tower. On the way to Beiwa Tower, Mu Chongtian asked Chu Yukan curiously, "Mrs. Chu, how many masters did the assassins of Blood Moon Tower send here this time?" Chu Yukan replied, "I don't know this either, but I heard that their host came in person." This. Hearing Chu Yukan's answer, Mu Chongtian was stunned for a moment. The owners of the Blood Moon Tower were already here. How could Bei Wang still show such an understatement? Mu Chongtian soon calmed down his heart. With so many strong men under King Chu's hands, he really didn't need to be afraid of the Blood Moon Tower. The owner of the Blood Moon Tower is just a Grand Master at best, and there must be more than one Grand Master under Bei Wang. The Suiyu Tower went to Bei Wang's mansion purely to seek death. Mu Chongtian thought to himself, "Forget it, after coming to Beijun, there are many opportunities to show his sincerity, so there is no need to rush for this moment. Shouldn't the king of Bei have said that he would let him train cavalry? That would be regarded as reusing him." After a while, the palace's carriage arrived at the entrance of Beiwa Tower. Seeing a man wearing a bamboo hat and Chu Yukan standing beside the palace carriage, Zhou Hanwen's lips slightly raised in the attic, "Miss Wang, it seems that as you said, these two people will always protect King Bei. Next, I'll ask Miss Wang to find a way to hold off Prince Bei. I'm going to Prince Bei's mansion." Wang Qingkai smiled and said, "Master Zhou, go slowly, I will try my best to delay the time and wait for your return." As soon as Wang Qingkai finished speaking, Zhou Hanwen led the people from Blood Moon Tower to the North Prince's mansion. At this moment, it was getting late and the sun had already set. The fiery red sunset shone on people's bodies, dyeing their skin bronze. Zhou Hanwen and his party quickly passed through the streets and headed straight to the North Prince's mansion. At this time, the North Palace was extremely quiet, and there seemed to be no one in the palace. When Zhou Hanwen and others entered the Northern Palace, they found that there was not even a single servant in the palace. Zhou Hanwen frowned, and he instantly felt something was wrong. The next moment, countless arrows were shot at them, and Zhou Hanwen realized that they had been fooled. However, Zhou Hanwen was still very confident. He was a master and there was no way these arrows could hurt him. As a master, he could feel that the man wearing a bamboo hat in Beiwa Tower was also a master. The mysterious master and Chu Yukin are not in the North Palace. Even if there are some guards in the North Palace, how can they resist his bloodbath in the North Palace? Zhou Hanwen then said to the Blood Moon Tower assassin behind him, "Kill me, no one from the North Palace will be spared." Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 66 Another Grand Master. Following Zhou Hanwen's order, the assassins from Blood Moon Tower rushed directly towards the direction of the Jin Yiwei soldiers, facing the rain of arrows. Seeing this scene, Lu Chen was already used to it. When he dealt with the deputy owner of the Blood Moon Tower last time, the 9th grade masters of the Blood Moon Tower also rushed forward despite the rain of arrows. It has to be said that before there was gunpowder in this world, the status of warriors was still unshakable. It's a pity that Lu Chen is here. Lu Chen then distributed the grenades to the Jin Yiwei soldiers. The assassin who killed Sui Yulu last time only used a dozen grenades, and he still had a lot of grenades. Lu Chen then said to the Jin Yiwei soldiers, "Throw the grenades the way this king does." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chen pulled out the safety catch, held the grenade in his hand for a moment, and then threw it directly in the direction of Zhou Hanwen. Lu Chen's system could recognize people, and he could tell at a glance that the man in white was the owner of the Blood Moon building. In addition, he was now a 9th level warrior and very strong. He easily threw the grenade over Zhou Hanwen. Zhou Hanwen's perception was very strong, and his eyes immediately locked on the round thing in the sky. Although he didn't know what it was, Zhou Hanwen suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis in his heart. The round thing looked like a stone, but Zhou Hanwen didn't think that the people in the palace had no arrows and could only throw stones. This was obviously a special weapon. Zhou Hanwen quickly jumped back a few steps. Although Zhou Hanwen jumped away, the warriors around him did not react. The grenade exploded directly in the air. With a loud bang, countless fragments flew out. Several warriors under the grenade were directly penetrated by several fragments in the head. Facing the traceable arrows, these warriors may be able to resist them for a while, but when faced with the extremely fast grenade fragments flying everywhere, they have almost no choice but to dodge. Seeing this scene in front of him, Zhou Hanwen's face instantly darkened. Although he guessed that this was a weapon unique to the royal palace, he had no idea that this weapon was so powerful. The 9th level warriors had no chance to survive in front of this weapon. In just the blink of an eye, the Blood Moon Tower lost several 9th level warriors. Originally, Zhou Hanwen just thought that there was a mysterious master in the palace. King Bei was able to survive several assassinations in the Blood Moon Tower because of that mysterious master. Now it seems that they were wrong. Even if Bei Wangfu doesn't have that mysterious master, with this mysterious weapon alone, even if Bawang Palace doesn't even have a warrior, it's still not easy for the assassins of Blood Moon Tower to kill Bei Wang. Everyone said that King Bei was a waste, but now it seems that everyone in the world has been deceived. Possessing such a terrifying weapon without leaking any information, King Bei must be planning something famous. But none of this matters anymore. What matters is how he kills King Bei in this situation. I don't know if it was because Zhou Hanwen, the owner of the Blood Moon Tower, personally led the team. Although the first grenade took away several 9th level warriors, the assassins of the Blood Moon Tower still remained calm. This actually surprised Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen did not intend to give them time to react. The next moment, he continued to throw grenades, and the other Jin Yiwei soldiers holding grenades also threw the grenades according to the method Lu Chen just used. Then a dozen grenades exploded above the heads of the Blood Moon Tower assassins. The poor Bloody Moon Tower assassins didn't even see King Bei himself, so they were killed and injured in large numbers, with only a few people left. Zhou Hanwen panicked at this time. He didn't expect that in such a short period of time, the people he brought would be basically gone. These assassins are all the elites of Blood Moon Tower. According to the past, these assassins would have no problem assassinating the emperors of some small countries, let alone a prince. But today, even the northern king didn't see them, and most of their people were dead. The weapons in Buwangfu are too terrifying. No. He must leave Buwang Mansion quickly. There has never been any news about the weapons in the Buwang Mansion. It must be because all outsiders who saw such weapons were killed. Otherwise, it is impossible for Daxia to have no news about such weapons. This is a powerful weapon that can subvert the world of martial arts. If people knew that Bei Wangfu possessed such weapons, I am afraid that the entire martial arts world would tremble, and the status of martial artists would plummet. Zhou Hanwen thought in his heart that although he might not be able to kill the North King, as long as he escaped and spread the news that the North King's mansion possessed such a powerful weapon, it wouldn't be long before the North King would be defeated by all the martial arts masters in the world. Expert assassination. He didn't believe that King Bei could still protect himself at that time. Thinking of this, Zhou Hanwen turned around and prepared to run away. However, the moment he turned around, he discovered that at the gate of the palace, a man wearing red clothes and carrying a long knife was leaning against the door frame. The moment he saw Qin Yushan, Zhou Hanwen's pupils shrank slightly. Another Grand Master. And this is no ordinary master. He had seen this man before. This is the killer known as the Blood Demon Sword. When this man dominated the world, there was no Blood Moon Tower, and he had only seen this man from afar. Zhou Hanwen never expected that he would see this man again in this place. Zhou Hanwen only had one thought left in his heart, and that was to escape. Putting aside the mysterious weapons of the palace, the Blood Demon Mad Saber alone was not something he could deal with. Others were already masters more than 10 years ago. Even if Qin Yushan is still a master now, his strength is infinitely close to that of a great master. It was not something that a warrior like him, who had just entered the master realm, could resist. Zhou Hanwen couldn't figure out why the Blood Demon Mad Saber appeared in the North Prince's mansion. He actually became King Bei's subordinate. How did King Bei do it? Qin Yushan smiled and said at this time, Zhou Hanwen, the Fatal Scholar, the owner of the Blood Moon Tower, I have long wanted to see your iron fan, and it seems that I finally got my wish today. After hearing Qin Yushan's words, Zhou Hanwen came back to his senses. Now is not the time to think about that. Now that he knows the terror of the North King's mansion, the North King is even more unlikely to let him go. If he wants to escape, he must first deal with Qin Yushan in front of him. Zhou Hanwen then took out a fan, opened it with a bang, and said, "Then let me ask Senior for advice." As he spoke, Zhou Hanwen waved his fan, and a dozen sharp needles flew towards Qin Yushan. After Qin Yushan easily avoided these sharp needles, he stepped out like a cannonball and rushed towards Zhou Hanwen in an instant. The best way to deal with the hidden long-range weapon in Zhou Hanwen's hand is to close the distance. However, Zhou Hanwen's iron fan was obviously not only capable of firing hidden weapons. He immediately tightened his wrist and closed the fan. The next moment, a sword blade appeared at the front of the fan. Zhou Hanwen's iron fan turned into a sword again at this time. Then, the two began to fight at close range. Sparks caused by the collision of the swords and fans continued to fly. The body-protecting aura on the two men was completely released, and the surrounding floor tiles were lifted up. Chapter 67 The Era of Warriors is coming to an end. When Qin Yushan and Zhou Hanwen were fighting, several 9th-level warriors from Jinyue were not idle. With the help of grenades, they eliminated all the assassins in Suiyu Tower in 3 strokes. Now only Zhou Hanwen is left as the owner of Blood Moon Building. Lu Chen jumped down from the roof, then walked to the flower bed of the martial arts training ground and sat on it, watching the battle between Zhou Hanwen and Qin Yushan. At this time, a member of the Jinyi Guard Kyunho came to Lu Chen and asked, "Your Majesty, why don't we take action?" Lu Chen immediately raised his hand and waved, and then said, "No, I want to see what the battle between the masters is like." Lu Chen has never seen the Grand Master fight, so he doesn't know the specific strength of the Grand Master. Seeing the battle between the Grand Masters with his own eyes, he can also better evaluate the Grand Master's combat effectiveness, and it is also easier for him to judge whether modern weapons can easily defeat a Grand Master. By then, the barbarian cavalry will definitely have warriors at the master level, and there will probably be more than one. Knowing the master's combat effectiveness in advance, he can be well prepared. At this time, Qin Yushan was holding the knife in his hand and pressing down on Zhou Hanwen. Zhou Hanwen was forced to dodge and had no ability to fight back. Zhou Hanwen felt that his arms were constantly trembling. The strength of the blood demon crazy sword that was so powerful back then was not just a boast. As long as he made a slight mistake, he would probably be dead. At this time, Zhou Hanwen spotted Lu Chen in the distance. He had never met Lu Chen, but judging from the respectful attitude of the surrounding Jinyi guards towards Lu Chen, he had basically guessed Lu Chen's identity. Zhou Hanwen finally came to his senses at this moment. He already understood that the person who entered Beiwa Tower earlier was not King Bei at all. The handsome young man not far away was the real King Bei. They, Blood Moon Tower, were fooled from the beginning. When he thought of this, Zhou Hanwen was filled with anger, but he had no choice at the moment. He himself was suppressed and beaten by Qin Yushan, and even escaping was a problem. How could he take the life of King Bei in this state? Is it possible that we are really going to fall into the hands of this little brat today? When he thought of this, Zhou Hanwen felt a little unwilling. Since he took over as the owner of Blood Moon Tower, assassination missions rarely failed, especially the assassination missions he personally participated in, which were all 100% successful. Unexpectedly, he was tricked by a nominal good-for-nothing prince today. The more Zhou Hanwen thought about it, the angrier he became, and then the power in his body began to work crazily. The next moment, red blood appeared faintly in Zhou Hanwen's body. Seeing this scene, Qin Yushan frowned. Zhou Hanwen waved his fan at this time, and countless flying needles flew out from the fan. Qin Yushan quickly took a few steps back, and then blocked the flying needles with his knife. However, Zhou Hanwen didn't even think about escaping at this time. The moment he flew out all the flying needles, his figure went straight towards Lu Chen not far away. Seeing this scene, Qin Yushan's expression changed drastically. "No! Your Majesty, get out of the way!" Zhou Hanwen said in a roaring voice, "Boy, if you want to kill me, then you should be buried with me." Hearing this, Lu Chen smiled slightly and did not hide away. "There's never been a better time to monitor your firearms. A Grand Master, and a Grand Master who uses the blood-burning method and uses the aura to protect the body." He wanted to see if Barrett's bullet could penetrate his body. Thinking of this, Lu Chen raised his hand casually. The long Barrett appeared in Lu Chen's hand, and the black muzzle was pointed at Zhou Hanwen's chest. Zhou Hanwen was stunned when he saw the stick-like weapon suddenly appearing in Lu Chen's hand. The weapon in Lu Chen's hand appeared out of thin air. Anyone who saw it would be surprised. Even Qin Yushan and the other guards were stunned by this scene. Is this a magic trick? Where did such a long weapon come from? Although he was stunned for a moment by Lu Chen's movements, Zhou Hanwen's body did not stop. Seeing that Zhou Hanwen was about to come to Lu Chen, he said sarcastically, "I just want to stop me with a stick. I am so looked down upon." As he spoke, Zhou Hanwen was ready to take Lu Chen's life. However, he did not discover what he imagined. The next moment, a loud noise was heard. "Gang!" Lu Chen shrugged his shoulders slightly. Even though he was now a 9th-level warrior, the recoil was still a bit strong when carrying Barrett for sniping. But fortunately, there is no problem with the accuracy, and the distance is so close, a blind man can hit it with his eyes closed. Moreover, the speed of the bullet is very fast. Even if Zhou Hanwen is a master, there is no way to avoid it. However, there is still a difference between a grandmaster and ordinary warriors. The moment the bullet came out of the chamber, Zhou Hanwen's eyes clearly saw a black dot flying from the top of the strange stick. Zhou Hanwen thought it was a hidden weapon and planned to use a fan to block it. However, the moment Zhou Hanwen waved his fan, Barrett's bullet instantly penetrated his iron fan, and then penetrated his protective aura, directly passing through his chest. The moment the bullet penetrated Zhou Hanwen's body, he lost his sense of pain, but he could feel that something had penetrated his body. Zhou Hanwen lowered his head slightly in disbelief. After discovering the blood hole on his chest, his pupils shrank slightly, showing a look of horror and disbelief. He couldn't figure it out. He was a grandmaster, and he still had body-protecting aura. What kind of hidden weapon could penetrate his body? And he didn't even block it with his own iron fan. Soon, Zhou Hanwen's consciousness gradually blurred, and his body fell down. Seeing the bloody hole in Zhou Hanwen's chest, Qin Yushan in the distance took a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but sigh. It seems that the era of warriors is coming to an end. Qin Yushan became a Jin Yiwei for some reasons, but he himself did not know that Lu Chen had such a powerful weapon. He only knew that Lu Chen was the master they must follow. After seeing the damage caused by the Bartley in Lu Chen's hand, he gradually understood why Lu Chen became the master of Jin Yiwei. Because this young man will definitely stand at the top of the world, overlooking everything. At the same time, after Mu Chongtian learned from Wang Qingkai that the assassins from Blood Moon Tower had gone to the palace, he immediately returned to the palace with Chu Yukin. On the way, Mu Chongtian saw that Chu Yukin was not worried at all. He asked curiously, "Mrs. Chu, are you not worried at all about what will happen to King Bei?" Chu Yukin asked, "Does General Mu want to see something happen to the prince?" Mu Chongtian said quickly, "That's not true, I'm just worried that the assassins from the Blood Moon Tower will hurt the prince." Mu Chenkei came to Beijun. If something happened to King Bei, their family would have a hard time, so he was the one who was most worried about something happening to Lu Chen. Seeing Chu Yukin's calmness, Mu Chongtian also felt a little curious. Is the Bawang mansion really so powerful? They didn't panic at all when faced with a Grandmaster and the entire Blood Moon Tower. Soon, Mu Chongtian and Chu Yukin returned to the palace. Mu Chongtian quickly entered the palace, intending to help the palace resist the assassins from the Blood Moon Tower. However, as soon as he entered the palace, he found the corpses of assassins wearing black clothes on the ground. This. Chapter 68 Aunt Chu, it's hard for a doctor to heal himself. Seeing that Mu Chongtian and Chu Yukin were back, Lu Chen said with a smile, "Father-in-law, Aunt Chu, you have worked hard." Chu Yukin didn't say anything. She quickly walked to Lu Chen's side and asked with concern, "Chener, are you okay? Are you injured?" Although she didn't seem worried at all about the situation in the palace on her way back, she was still very worried about Lu Chen's situation in her heart. Lu Chen was about to reply that it was okay, but suddenly thought of something, so he immediately covered his chest, and then said with a strong look on his face, "Aunt Chu, I'm okay, I just suffered a minor injury." Seeing Lu Chen's appearance, Chu Yukin suddenly became extremely nervous. "Chener, are you feeling uncomfortable in any way now?" Lu Chen said, "I don't feel any discomfort at all. I just feel like something is accumulating in my dantian, which makes me a little breathless." Hearing this, Mu Chongtian, who was not far away, couldn't help but become worried. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Lu Chen say, "Commander Qin, please help dispose of the corpse in the palace. If I don't feel well, just let's go back and rest first." Having said this, Lu Chen took Chu Yukin's beautiful hand and left in front of everyone. As he walked, he said, "Aunt Chu, please help me to adjust. I feel that the air in my body is getting less and less." It's clear. Seeing this scene, Mu Chongtian was stunned. After Lu Chen and Chu Yukin left, Mu Chongtian asked Qin Yushan curiously, "Commander Qin, is King Bei okay?" Mu Chongtian didn't know what was going on. He really thought that Lu Chen was seriously injured and needed Chu Yukin to nurse him back. Hearing Mu Chongtian's question, Qin Yushan smiled and said, "The King of the North is naturally busy." This. Mu Chongtian asked doubtfully, "Why can you still laugh when Bei Wang is in trouble?" Qin Yushan asked, "General Mu, can't you see that King Bei is in trouble in front of Mrs. Chu?" Mu Chongtian was not a fool. After hearing Qin Yushan's reminder, Mu Chongtian understood instantly. Being injured is just an excuse. So, does King Bei have other thoughts about Chu Yukin? Mu Chongtian quickly stopped himself from thinking about it. This was not something he should be concerned about. As a man, it is normal to have some thoughts about beautiful women. King Bei is also a man, so it is not surprising. Mu Chongtian then focused on the corpses of the assassins on the ground. He found that except for the corpses of the assassins, there were no other corpses on the ground. There is not a single body of a palace soldier. In other words, when the assassins from the Blood Moon Tower come to the palace cannot kill all the assassins from the Blood Moon Tower with one soldier? How did you do that? Mu Chongtian then looked at Qin Yushan and continued to ask, "Commander Qin, why didn't I see the bodies of the royal soldiers?" Qin Yushan replied, "General Mu, not a single soldier in the palace died. Where did the corpses come from?" Hearing Qin Yushan's answer, Mu Chongtian was shocked. The palace actually wiped out the assassins of the Blood Moon Tower without losing a single soldier. Is this the true strength of Buwangfu? At this time, Qin Yushan said, "General Mu, please go back and have a good rest today. The prince will summon us tomorrow morning if he has something to do, and you will also participate." Upon hearing this, Mu Chongtian said, "Okay, I'll go back first." Then Mu Chongtian turned around and left the palace. At the same time, after Lu Chen and Chu Yukin came to the study, Lu Chen pretended to be very uncomfortable. Seeing Lu Chen like this, Chu Yukin said with worry on her face, "Chener, don't scare me, how are you?" Lu Chen said, "Oh, I accidentally got slapped by an assassin just now. Commander Qin checked me and said it was fine, but I don't know why, but I just feel uncomfortable here in my chest." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin no longer cared about whether men and women should be kissed or not. She said directly, "Take off your clothes quickly, let me take a look." Without saying a word, Lu Chen undressed and took off his clothes. Chu Yukin immediately raised her slender hand, and then gently stroked Lu Chen's chest. She used her internal power to input into Lu Chen's body and helped Lu Chen check, but found nothing wrong. Chu Yukin said to herself, "Strange, I didn't find anything unusual." At this point, Chu Yukin raised her head, looked into Lu Chen's eyes with her beautiful eyes and said, "Chener, are you the same as last time? Something went wrong while practicing martial arts, which caused the power in your body to not function properly." "Smooth." Lu Chen said, "That's possible. It's probably because the thief slapped me just now and exposed the hidden wounds I accumulated from practicing martial arts in recent days. That's why I feel that the airflow in my dantian is not smooth." Chu Yukin suddenly thought of something at this time, and then said, "I remember, don't you know how to heal the body with magic? Why don't you try to use magic to heal yourself?" Lu Chen sighed, "Oh, Aunt Chu, it's hard for a doctor to heal himself. My magic can only be used to treat others, not myself." Chu Yukin said worriedly, "What should we do?" Lu Chen asked with a smile on his face, "Aunt Chu, have you forgotten the way you helped me heal last time?" This. Chu Yukin hesitated for a moment. Of course, she had not forgotten how she helped Lu Chen with his treatment last time, but she always felt that the treatment method was not very serious. And she almost made a mistake last time. If she did it again this time, what if she couldn't control herself later? Thinking of what happened last time, Chu Yukin's dignified and elegant beauty appeared with a touch of flying clouds. Chu Yukin then said, "Chener, is that method really effective for your body?" Lu Chen replied, "Didn't we already try it last time? It must be useful." Chu Yukin hesitated for a moment, then said, "Okay, let's try again, but don't put your legs too close to me." At this point, Chu Yukin's face became even redder, and she completely looked like a shy beautiful woman. It's fine if the upper body is too close, but it's inappropriate if the lower body is too close. She also knows that Lu Chen has some thoughts about her, and she is worried that Lu Chen will not be able to control himself. Seeing that Chu Yukin agreed, Lu Chen said, "Yeah, I understand." Then Lu Chen raised his hands and hugged Chu Yukin's waist directly. Chu Yukin's buttocks were slightly sunken as she leaned on the desk. At this time, Lu Chen said in Chu Yukin's ear, "Aunt Chu, this time the barbarians are attacking, I don't know if I will be able to see you again in the future." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin said quickly, "Chener, don't say such unlucky words. I believe you will be able to defeat the barbarians. After all, you are a person with immortal fate and are blessed by immortals." Lu Chen said in a depressed tone, "Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of what happens." Having said this, Lu Chen used both arms to hold Nephrite Wengxiang tightly in his arms, and their bodies were also pressed tightly together. Chu Yukin twisted her hips slightly, trying to avoid Lu Chen's enthusiasm, but found that she couldn't move at all, so she had to let Lu Chen hold her. At this time, Lu Chen's unique manly scent flowed into Chu Yukin's nose, making Chu Yukin feel hot all over. Chu Yukin felt nervous. Sure enough, it was like this again, and it was like this last time. Chapter 69 How can you treat your aunt like this? Chu Yukin wanted to use Kung Fu to calm down the strangeness in her body and calm down the restlessness in her heart, but just like before, she now had no Kung Fu in her body and was just like an ordinary person. Chu Yukin couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She was always like this every time she came into contact with Lu Chen. If things continued like this, she might make a mistake that day. Fortunately, Lu Chen didn't move his hands or feet at this time. He hugged Chu Yukin tightly, rested his head on her shoulder, and said in her ear, "Aunt Chu, if something happens to me one day, you must if you want to help me take care of Zixuan and the others, they will ask you." Hearing Lu Chen's tone as if he was explaining the funeral arrangements, Chu Yukin said quickly, "Chener, if you say such things again, I will be angry." In Chu Yukin's opinion, Lu Chen's words were very unlucky. What if Lu Chen's words came true and something happened? Seeing that Chu Yukin's tone was a little more serious, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Okay, I won't say anything anymore." Feeling Chu Yukin's soft body, Lu Chen had other thoughts on his mind, and his body's energy and blood surged, making him a little restless. A unique fragrance disturbed Lu Chen's nose, stimulating him constantly, as if it was teasing him. Chu Yukin also noticed something strange at this time. She twisted slightly, trying to keep her butt away from Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen didn't do what she wanted. His big hand moved down slightly and fixed Chu Yukin's buttocks, making it impossible for her to move. Chu Yukin was heartbroken. She didn't expect Lu Chen to be so bold. Chu Yukin quickly pushed Lu Chen away with her upper body, then looked at Lu Chen with eyes full of spring water and asked, "Chener, are you feeling better? Let auntie go when you feel better." There was a hint of prayer in Chu Yukin's tone. If it continued like this, something might really happen. Lu Chen said, "I still feel uncomfortable. Please stay a little longer. It may be that there are too many hidden injuries and it will take some time to repair." Wang Qingkai blushed and whispered, "Can you be more honest with your hands and stop touching them everywhere? If you do this again, I will really get angry." Lu Chen said innocently, touching randomly. No, isn't my hand always left like this? Chu Yukin pursed her lips but didn't say much. She really couldn't speak. As time passed by, Chu Yukin became increasingly unable to suppress her inner restlessness. Her whole body softened, and she was able to stand only with Lu Chen's support. At this time, Lu Chen looked at Chu Yukin's beautiful eyes and said, "Aunt Chu, I feel that this conditioning method is not very effective anymore. We need to go further." Hearing this, Chu Yukin, who was already in a daze, suddenly woke up. Want to go further? Their bodies are already stuck together. If it goes further, wouldn't it be? Chu Yukin didn't dare to think about it anymore. She said quickly, "No, I am your aunt, we can't do that kind of thing." Seeing Chu Yukin's excited look, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Aunt Chu, you misunderstood me, I didn't mean it that way." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin breathed a sigh of relief, and then she asked in a gentle tone, "Chener, what you said is one step further." Before Chu Yukin could say anything, Lu Chen leaned her head over, and then took the initiative to kiss her lips. Chu Yukin's mind suddenly went blank. She didn't expect that Lu Chen would do such a thing, and Lu Chen's movements were so sudden that she didn't even have time to dodge. Lu Chen glanced at Chu Yukin's favorability score at this time. In the past, Chu Yukin's favorability score had always been 98, but it was always 2 points short of 100. But when he took the initiative to kiss like this, Chu Yukin's favorability level not only did not drop, but instead rose by 1 point, reaching 99. Lu Chen felt a little incredible. By doing such a thing, he was already prepared for Chu Yukin's favorability to drop. In fact, this is easy to understand. Chu Yukin originally felt that way about him in her heart. Coupled with the continuous influence of Long Feng Ti, her heart had long belonged to him. It's just that some secular morals in this world trapped her like shackles, so she never dared to go further with Lu Chen. But today Lu Chen took the initiative to break the stiff situation between the two, which directly broke the shackles in Chu Yukin's heart, so her favorability towards Lu Chen also began to rise. But after Chu Yukin came to her senses, she quickly raised her hand and kept pushing Lu Chen's chest, trying to push him away. "Ahoy!" Chu Yukin pushed Lu Chen's chest with her jade hands and made a voice to protest, but Lu Chen ignored it. This is the best opportunity for desensitization. If nothing further happens between him and Chu Yukin, then his relationship with Chu Yukin will remain in such a stalemate from now on. Lu Chen didn't plan to take down Chu Yukin today, but he had to let Chu Yukin get familiar with doing intimate things with him. Only in this way, she would be able to accept him more quickly when doing business in the future. Chu Yukin struggled for a moment and found that there was really no way to push Lu Chen, so she had to give up and passively cooperated with Lu Chen's kiss. After an unknown amount of time, Chu Yukin felt that Lu Chen's hands were becoming more and more dishonest, and her mind instantly sobered up. If she continued like this, she might become Lu Chen's woman. No. This cannot go on. He is Sister Yu's child. I can't make mistakes. She didn't know where the strength came from, but she suddenly pushed, and this time she actually pushed Lu Chen away. After pushing Lu Chen away, Chu Yukin was ashamed and angry and said with tears in her eyes, "Chener, you are going too far. How could you treat aunt like this? I'm your aunt." Seeing Chu Yukin's pitiful and touching look, Lu Chen felt a little guilty, and he immediately said, "Aunt Chu, I don't know what happened just now, but suddenly I couldn't control myself. This may be the person who practiced with me. It's related to immortal magic. Aunt Chu, I was wrong, please don't be angry." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Chu Yukin calmed down a little. She wiped her tears with her sleeves, and then asked, "How is your health?" Lu Chen said, "I have recovered a bit, much better than before." Hearing Lu Chen's answer, Chu Yukin said, "Auntie can help you take care of your body, but you are not allowed to mess with me in the future." Lu Chen said with a frustrated look, "I understand. Seeing Lu Chen's appearance, Chu Yukan knew that what she said was serious, and she felt very guilty. Then she took the initiative to move forward and leaned on Lu Chen's broad chest. Seeing this scene, Lu Chen was stunned. He did not expect that Chu Yukan would actually come up to her. Chu Yukan said at this time, "You are not allowed to move, I will just hold you." Upon hearing this, Lu Chen said, "Okay." After a while, Chu Yukan noticed something strange about Lu Chen again. Chu Yukan blushed, and then cursed fiercely, "Chener, you little scoundrel, why are you always so dishonest?" Chapter 70. Don't even think about it. After hearing Chu Yukan's words, Lu Chen naturally knew what she was talking about. Lu Chen then said with a look of helplessness, "Aunt Chu, I am a man. Any man with a strong heart cannot remain indifferent with a beautiful woman in his arms." Chu Yukan became even more panicked when she heard that Lu Chen praised her as a great beauty. Although she forced herself to calm down just now, for some reason, she started to become agitated again. Chu Yukan emphasized again, "I am your aunt. You are not allowed to have any inappropriate thoughts about me." Lu Chen said calmly, "Aunt Chu, we are not related by blood. Besides, you are only about 11 years older than me." Hearing this, Chu Yukan was stunned for a moment. Lu Chen was telling the truth. They did not have any blood relationship. At most, she was just married to Lu Chen's mother. And the difference of 11 years seems to be a big difference, but when those men married wives, some in their 70s or 80s still married teenage girls. This age actually didn't mean anything at all. If you think so, it seems that there is nothing inappropriate between the two of them. Chu Yukan's brain was stunned at this moment, and she quickly stopped her random thoughts. How could she have such an idea? She is a married woman. She is a widow now. And Chener is a prince, how can a prince marry a widow? Thinking of this, Chu Yukan immediately said, "Chener, I don't care what you say, anyway, you just can't have thoughts about auntie. If Sister Yu knows that I lied to her about her son's body, how will I face it after I die?" She. Hearing Chu Yukan's words, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Then just let me lie to you." Chu Yukan snorted lightly and said, "Don't even think about it." Hearing Chu Yukan's words, Lu Chen smiled slightly. Although Chu Yukan spoke so toughly, he could already tell that Chu Yukan's inner defenses had loosened. If she had a few more close contacts, Chu Yukan would completely fall. After an unknown amount of time, Chu Yukan asked in a gentle tone, "Chener, are you feeling better?" Lu Chen said, "Well, is my danshan better? I don't have that feeling of poor airflow anymore, but I feel very uncomfortable in other places." Hearing this, Chu Yukan instantly understood what Lu Chen was talking about. She spat and cursed, "You little rascal, don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You should look to Music Xuan for any other problems with your body. Solve it." Having said this, Chu Yukan slowly pushed Lu Chen away, then took a few steps back to distance herself from him. "Chener, since you're fine, I'll leave first." Lu Chen said, "Okay." Lu Chen felt that it was almost done. This kind of thing still needed to be done step by step and could not be done forcefully. Then Chu Yukan turned around and walked towards the door. Seeing Chu Yukan's charming figure, Lu Chen felt that he couldn't control it. Then he immediately went to Mu Zixuan's yard and picked up Mu Zixian and went to the next room to cultivate feelings. The next morning. Early in the morning, before Lu Chen got up, important officials from Beijun came to the palace. County Governor Li Rui felt a little puzzled when he saw the armored generals and lieutenants on the palace's martial arts training ground. Why did the palace summon them at this time? After Bei Wang came to Beijun, he never took care of Beijun's affairs. Every time he came to report to Bei Wang would find an excuse to send him away. This seems to be the first time that King Bei has summoned them to the palace. Is it possible that King Bei is planning to take over the affairs of Beijun? Thinking of this, Li Rui felt a little nervous. He was not sure whether King Bei would make any major policy adjustments. If King Bei really wanted to carry out reforms, then for him as a county governor, the workload would probably increase significantly. Of course, this is not what Li Rui is most worried about. What he is most worried about is that in order to find someone to cooperate with the reform, King Bei gave up his position as county guard and replaced him with someone close to King Bei. Thinking of this, Li Rui immediately came to Li Feng and asked in a low voice, "General Li, do you know why the prince came to us?" Li Feng shook his head and said, "I just received the news from the prince, and I don't know why he came to us." Hearing Li Feng's words, Li Rui became even more worried. Even Li Feng, an important general around the northern king, didn't know what it was. It must be a big deal. At this time, a middle-aged man wearing armor led two young men into the martial arts training ground. Seeing that man, Li Feng and the soldiers who had followed Lu Chen to Beijun were stunned. Li Feng immediately walked towards the man. When he walked in front of the man, Li Feng was about to salute, but the man directly lifted his arm. Li Feng looked at Mu Chongtian and asked with confusion, "General Mu, why are you here in Beijun?" Hearing what Li Feng said, Mu Chongtian smiled and corrected him, "General Li, you got the wrong person. My surname is Mo, not Mu." Hearing what Mu Chongtian said, Li Feng instantly realized that something had happened in the capital. As Mu Chongtian's subordinate, how could he not know Mu Chongtian and his two sons? Li Feng finally understood why Mu Chongtian wanted them to follow the northern king in the first place. From the looks of it, the Huban army might have been disbanded and reorganized. Li Feng then said, "General Mo, what happened in the capital?" Mu Chongtian replied, "The Duke of Mu was suspected of colluding with the remnants of the Chen kingdom and was exiled by His Majesty. Our Mo family also suffered. We were assassinated by thieves on the way to exile. Fortunately, the prince sent someone to rescue us and brought us to Beijun." Hearing Mu Chongtian's words, Li Feng's brain froze. He also discovered the changes in the palace during this period. Recently, there were many 9th-grade masters in the palace, and there was even a person who was suspected of being a master. Li Feng had long realized that King Bei was not simple, so Li Feng didn't find it strange that King Bei was able to send people to rescue Mu Chongtian. He just couldn't believe that King Bei had such courage. There is a difference between being able to save someone and daring to save someone. Some people have the ability to save others, but they may not have the courage to save others. The Duke of Mu was eliminated because of the conflict with the Emperor, but King Bei still dared to save the Duke of Mu and his family under such circumstances. This shows how courageous the North King is. If it were any other prince, he would never dare to have contact with Duke Mu's mansion for fear of being implicated. Li Feng thought to himself, could it be that the Northern King came to them today because of General Mu? Just as Li Feng was thinking this, a maid from the palace came over and said to everyone, "The prince asked you to go to his study and wait." After hearing this, everyone immediately walked towards Lu Chen's study. After Lu Chen got up, he had a simple breakfast and then went to the study. At this time, everyone in the study was still guessing why King Bei was looking for them. At this time, King Bei's figure appeared at the door, and everyone immediately saluted and said, "See King Bei." Lu Chen waved his hand to signal them to excuse themselves, then he walked straight to his desk and opened a map on the table. Li Rui was the first to ask, "Your Majesty, I wonder why you summoned us today." Chapter 71. Do you want to ask the court for help? After hearing Li Rui's question, Lu Chen did not answer directly. He glanced at Qin Yushan in the crowd, and then said, "Commander Qin, please tell me." Hearing Lu Chen's words, everyone's eyes fell on Qin Yushan. Li Rui and others were a little curious, "Commander? What position is this? Since when did the palace have such a position?" Qin Yushan walked out of the crowd at this time and came to Lu Chen's table. He first saluted and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Afterwards, Qin Yushan said to everyone, our people intercepted the summoning order of the barbarians on the grassland. The barbarians are preparing to summon 300,000 cavalry to go south, capture Beijun, and then establish a country in Beijun and use Yancheng as their capital. After hearing Qin Yushan's words, everyone's expressions changed instantly. The barbarians have always been the biggest threat to Beijun. The reason why Beijun is so poor is because the barbarians go south to plunder from time to time. Unexpectedly, this time the barbarians stopped coming to rob, and instead directly occupied Beijun, and even established a country in Beijun. For a moment, everyone in the study was extremely panicked. Especially Li Rui. The reason why he was able to become the county guard was because the previous county guards were killed by the barbarians, otherwise it would not have been his turn to be the county guard. He originally thought he could live a stable life for a few days, but he didn't expect that just over a year later, the barbarians would go south again. And it's not an ordinary robbery. If it's just a robbery of food, Li Rui is not so worried, because the barbarians will only steal food in several other cities north of Yancheng, and rarely come to cities further south like Yancheng. After coming back to his senses, Li Rui quickly asked, Commander Qin, is your information accurate? The barbarians going south is a big deal, let alone the 300,000 cavalry going south to attack Beijun. This matter must be reported to the imperial court, and it will be reported to the imperial court immediately. In the eyes of everyone, the 30,000 soldiers of Beijun were like mantises in front of the 300,000 barbarian cavalry. They could only resist the barbarians with the help of the imperial army. In fact, every time Beijun resisted barbarian invasion, it relied on the imperial army. Beijun's 30,000 soldiers were just to deal with some small fish and shrimps. Qin Yushan said at this time, the intelligence we collected has been verified. Our people infiltrated into the barbarian royal court and got the news personally from a certain barbarian king. This. Hearing Qin Yushan's words, everyone had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Who is this Qin commander next to the prince? How could the prince's people sneak into the barbarian royal court? At this time, Li Rui suddenly woke up. He had always thought that Lu Chen was a lazy prince who was idle and didn't care about anything. Now he understood that all of this was just done by King Bei to show others. The king of Bei has long had a power that belongs to him in private, and this power has penetrated into various places in Beijun, and has even penetrated into the barbarians. Thinking of this, Li Rui broke out in cold sweat on his forehead. Fortunately, when King Bei came to Beijun, he didn't cause any obstacles for King Bei. Otherwise, let alone Wu Shaimao, I'm afraid I don't even know whether he is alive or not. At this time, Mu Chongtian asked, My lord, what are you going to do? Do you want to ask the court for help? 30,000 versus 300,000, there is no chance of winning at all. The imperial court must send a large army, otherwise North County will not be protected. Lu Chen said, I plan to send someone to tell the court the news later. However, it will take at least 3 months for the court to assemble an army. The barbarians can complete the assembly in about 2 months. We still need to guard Beijun for a while. Although Lu Chen was confident that he would let 30,000 soldiers defend Beijun and eat the barbarians' 300,000 cavalry, this kind of thing must be notified to the court. After all, Beijun was nominally the territory of the Great Xia Dynasty. If a foreign enemy invades and does not notify the court, no matter whether the battle is won or defeated, the court will think that he has rebellious intentions, and he does not even notify the court of such an important matter. However, Daxia's army was not assembled as quickly as the barbarians. It would take at least 2 or 3 months to mobilize the army. There is a saying that before the soldiers and horses move, food and grass go first. Daxia's army is definitely not as fast as the barbarian cavalry. What's more, this is in Beijun. The roads in Beijun are extremely bad. It will take more time for Daxia to mobilize the army. After hearing Lu Chen's words, Li Rui's face became even paler. If the barbarians go south, they may be able to occupy the entire North County in less than a month, and it will take such a long time for the Daxia army to gather. By the time the Daxia army comes, all their 30,000 soldiers will be dead. I can't even imagine what will happen to Yancheng by that time. Lu Chen continued, this king plans to evacuate all the people north of Yancheng to the south of Yancheng, and then concentrate all forces to hold back the barbarian army of 300,000 in Yancheng. General Mo, you have fought against the barbarian army before. I wonder what you think of this idea. Hearing Lu Chen's question, Mu Chongtian was stunned for a second, and he frowned slightly. Then he took a look at the map, and then asked, there is no problem with the strong walls and clear fields, but if all the people north of Yancheng are evacuated, the barbarian army will march straight into Yancheng. 30,000 soldiers want to defend Yancheng. Disaster. Mu Chongtian knew very well the strength of the barbarian cavalry. Most of the barbarian cavalry were elites. It was basically impossible for 30,000 soldiers to hold back 300,000 cavalry. Lu Chen continued, what if I have a weapon in my hand that can instantly break the cavalry square? Hearing Lu Chen's words, Li Feng and others' eyes instantly lit up. Those of them who have followed Bei Wang from the beginning know very well that Bei King has some mysterious weapons on his body, such as the exploding stones and the black stick that can kill 9th level warriors instantly. Now there are rumors in the army that King Bei has received the inheritance from the immortal. As for whether it has the inheritance of the immortals, it doesn't matter, as long as the North King has weapons that can destroy the barbarians, or such weapons can be manufactured on a large scale. Mu Chongtian was about to ask Lu Chen what kind of weapon he was, but Lu Chen looked at the map and continued to ask, General Mo, I plan to lead the barbarian cavalry to the Wanning River Valley, and then ambush them on the high ground of the river valley. I don't know what you are doing. I don't think this plan is feasible. After all, Mu Chongtian had fought against the barbarians several times, and he knew the situation of the barbarians best, so Lu Chen wanted to ask his opinion. Professional matters should be left to professionals. After hearing what Lu Chen said, Mu Chongtian looked at the map on the table seriously, but he did not answer immediately. After a while, Mu Chenke said, if the prince is in Yancheng, it will not be difficult to lead the barbarian cavalry to the Wanning Valley. The terrain of the Wanning Valley is relatively flat, making it easier for the barbarian cavalry to go south and go straight to Yancheng. It's just that, Your Majesty, if we set up an ambush in the Wanning Valley, there will be only 30,000 people, and I'm afraid they won't be able to stop the charge of the barbarian cavalry. There are highlands on both sides of the Wanning River Valley and a flat plain in front. Even if the barbarian cavalry is ambushed in the Wanning River Valley, others can quickly pass through the Wanning River Valley as long as they speed up. The Wanning River Valley is not very long. If you want to resist the charge of the barbarian cavalry in front, it is unlikely that there are not 100,000 people. What's more, Beijun's 30,000 soldiers have to set up ambushes on the highlands on both sides. By then, there will not even be 30,000 soldiers facing them head-on. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 72 I Want Him to Be My Slave. After listening to Mu Changtian's words, Lu Chen looked at the map and fell into deep thought again. This is indeed a problem. The Wanning River Valley is not long, and it is not a big problem for the barbarian cavalry to pass quickly. Once howitzers are used, the barbarian cavalry will inevitably be in chaos. They will either rush forward or retreat back. No matter whether the barbarian cavalry charges forward or retreats, they still need a large number of soldiers to resist the barbarian cavalry. Of course, if they just plan to repel the barbarian soldiers, then they only need to hold the front of the Wanning Valley. However, Lu Chen had great ambitions. He didn't just want to fight off the barbarian cavalry. If we just repel the barbarian cavalry, those barbarian cavalry will not be able to capture Yancheng and will probably attack other cities. What he wants most in this battle is to eliminate the effective strength of the barbarians, so that the barbarians can no longer gather their forces to go south for a long time. Therefore, these 300,000 people absolutely cannot be put back. If this was put back, after the barbarian soldiers calmed down, they would go south to plunder again. Lu Chen didn't think the howitzer could completely frighten them. Lu Chen had also heard about the situation in the north. When winter came, many people would starve to death even in the North County, let alone the barbarians on the grassland. Lu Chen was not sympathizing with the barbarians, but in his opinion, people could do anything when they were about to starve to death, and it was impossible for the barbarians to not dare to go south just because there were howitzers in Beijun. Lu Chen sighed and said, "Hurry up and recruit troops." After hearing this, Mu Chongtian still said with some worry, "My lord, in such a short period of time, it will be very difficult to train the new soldiers to be able to fight against the barbarian cavalry." What Mu Chongtian said was a bit conservative. It was simply impossible to train soldiers to be able to fight against barbarian cavalry within 2 months. Lu Chen naturally understood this truth, and he immediately said, "I plan to create an artillery battalion. The newly recruited soldiers will not participate in frontal combat. By then, all 30,000 soldiers in Beijun will be able to enter the frontal battlefield." Artillery battalion? What it is? Everyone was confused when they heard the new term coming out of Lu Chen's mouth. They had never heard of an artillery battalion. Lu Chen looked at Li Rui and said, "Chief Li, this is a problem for you. You must cooperate with General Li and the others to recruit 10,000 new soldiers as soon as possible." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Li Rui immediately said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Li Rui sighed inwardly. He originally wanted to persuade King Bei to withdraw south, but judging from King Bei's tone, others had no idea of evacuating south. If he proposed to withdraw to the south at this time, wouldn't he offend the northern king? Li Rui couldn't help but think about the use of recruiting 10,000 more soldiers. Let alone 10,000 soldiers, even if he recruited 100,000 more new soldiers, there would be no way to stop the barbarian cavalry. Although he thought so in his heart, Li Rui did not dare to say it directly. After all, the king of Bei was the vassal king, and he was the master of Beijun. At this time, Lu Chen looked at the map on the table and said, "After the artillery battalion is established, I will show you the new weapons of the North Palace." After hearing this, everyone became even more curious. King Bei seemed to be very confident in the new weapons he mentioned. They wondered what kind of new weapons gave King Bei the courage to fight the barbarian army in Yancheng. Although he was curious, he did not continue to ask. The northern king had already said that he would show it to them, so the main task now was to seize the time to recruit soldiers and form a new army as soon as possible. In the north, the barbarian royal court. On the endless grassland, there are large and small felt tents, also known as yurts. The yurts in the middle become larger in area. The largest yurt is where one of the barbarian kings lives. The barbarians are widely distributed on the grassland, and there are 7 kings in total. Located due north of Beijun is the Serious King, the barbarian king who is preparing to attack Beijun and establish a country in Beijun. At this time, a woman wearing animal skins rode a horse into the middle of the GER community. The woman has fair skin and a beautiful and delicate face. She does not look like she lives on the grassland at all. After she got off the horse, she immediately asked her slave, "Is Wu Yuan back?" The slave holding the horse next to her, who had an inscription on his face, immediately replied, "You are back, Your Highness." After hearing this, the woman immediately excitedly went to the smaller yurt next to the big yurt. After opening the curtain, she found that the man she was talking about just now was indeed back. At this time, the man named Wu Yuan was kneeling on the ground, reporting some information to a beautiful woman. Inside the yurt, a stunningly beautiful woman was lying half on the bed, exposing her long white legs. The woman was wearing gorgeous plush clothes, and her whole body was covered with glittering jewelry. She looked very charming and charming. She is the most important woman in the barbarian branch of the Serious King, and she was also the princess of the previous Serious King. According to the custom of the barbarians, after the death of the previous serious king, she will marry the current serious king. But for some reasons, she has never married, but she has promised to the current serious king that if he can defeat Beijun and establish a country in Beijun, she will marry him and become his princess. At this time, the woman who entered the tent saluted and said, "I have met the princess." Although the beautiful woman in front of her has not yet married the current serious king, everyone recognizes her as the princess. Yellow Nanyang glanced at Xiao Wenyao, and then said softly, "Get up." Yellow Nanyang's voice was so gentle that it made people feel like they were bathed in the spring breeze. Xiao Wenyao, the woman who entered the tent, is the daughter of the current serious king Xiao Hongbo. Originally, they did not have a surname. But in order to learn from Daxia, everyone in the serious king's clan now has a surname, and the serious king's royal family takes the surname Xiao. The name Xiao Wenyao was also given to her by Princess Yellow Nanyang not long ago. Yellow Nanyang's attention returned to the man in front of her again, and she asked, "I heard that the vassal king of Beijun was a lecherous person who spent all day having fun in the palace. Since he went to Beijun, I have never interfered in Bei County's affairs, so I don't know if this is really the case." Wu Yuan said, "Hui Wangfei, it is indeed true." Hearing the man's answer, a smile appeared on the corner of Yellow Nanyang's mouth, "So, this time the king marches south, Beijun is within easy reach." Wu Yuan reminded, "Princess, although the king of the north is just a waste, Daxia's army will not sit idly by and ignore it. Once the king sends troops, Daxia will definitely send an army to the north." Yellow Nanyang said calmly, "By the time the Daxia army arrives, the king has already established a firm foothold in Beijun, and civil strife is about to break out in Daxia, so the Xia emperor does not have so much energy to take care of us." At this time, Xiao Wenyao on the side intervened and said, "Princess, if you can capture the North King after conquering the North County, can you hand him over to me? I heard that the North King is very handsome, and I want him to be mine." Slave. Chapter 73 How handsome is he? After hearing Xiao Wenyao's words, Yellow Nanyang smiled slightly, and then said, "Yao Yao, I'm afraid this won't work. No matter what, he is still the Prince of Daxia. If we catch him, we can use him to make some deals with Daxia. He still has some effects for us." Xiao Wenyao curled her lips and said nothing more. After all, Yellow Nanyang was the princess and had a great say in the Serious King clan. The Serious King's tribe has been able to develop to its current size and possess advanced weapons, all thanks to the leadership of the princess. She actively learned from Daxia and secretly bought many people from the Daxia dynasty, and then used these people to continue business and trade with the Daxia dynasty. The Wu Yuan kneeling in front of her was one of them. Under her leadership, the Serious tribe is no longer weaker than other barbarian branches, and is even stronger. The establishment of a country in Beijun was also an idea put forward by Yellow Nanyang. She found that the north was getting colder year by year, and the barbarian population was increasing rapidly. Today's grasslands can no longer support such a large barbarian population. In addition, Beijun is getting poorer and poorer. Even if they go to Beijun to grab food, the food they grab will not be enough for their tribe to last for a long time. The best way is to learn from the Daxia dynasty and grow food crops to support a larger population. Moreover, she also found out that there seems to be a kind of food crop in Beijun that can produce thousands of kilograms per acre. If the Serious King can conquer Beijun and occupy Beijun to establish a country, from now on, their branch will no longer need to live in pursuit of water and grass, and life will also change. Better. The strength and scale of the Serious King clan are inseparable from Yellow Nanyang's policies. Therefore, she is an irreplaceable existence in the Serious King clan. Even the current Serious King Xiao Hongbo respects her. Of course, Yellow Nanyang's status was not there from the beginning. She was only a teenager when she married her predecessor, the Serious King. However, the previous Serious King was already an old man at that time. He was paralyzed on the bed and unable to manage the entire group. It was Yellow Nyan who helped him manage the group. Over time, Yellow Nyan had a lot of power in his hands. After the death of the serious king, there were no heirs. With the mediation of Yellow Nyan, the serious clan elected Xiao Hongbo as the new serious king. The current serious king was selected with the help of Yellow Nyan, which once again consolidated the power in Yellow Nyan's hands. Moreover, Yellow Nyan is a very smart woman. She has given the current serious king enough face to let him make his own decisions on all major matters. This way it seems that she has transferred all her power. Even when the serious king said that he wanted to marry her, she did not refuse. She just set a goal for the serious king and asked him to marry him when he reached the goal. Yellow Nyan was only a teenager when she married the last serious king, and she is still innocent. She cannot remain a widow for the rest of her life for a dead person, so she must marry. In the eyes of the current serious king Xiao Hongbo, Yellow Nyan must be his woman, so he also has great trust in her. As for taking Beijun and marrying her, Xiao Hongbo regarded Beijun as a gift to Yellow Nyan. At this time, Yellow Nyan looked at Wu Yuan who was kneeling in front of him and continued, "Wu Yuan, you have worked hard to go to Daxia to find out the news this time. Go down and have a good rest." Wu Yuan immediately said, "Thank you, princess." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Yuan stood up and left Yellow Nyan's yurt. Seeing Wu Yuan getting up and leaving, Xiao Wenyao quickly said, "Princess, I'm leaving first too." Having said this, Xiao Wenyao also turned around and left the yurt. After Xiao Wenyao walked out of the yurt, he quickly said to Wu Yuan, "Wu Yuan, wait a minute." Wu Yuan stopped, turned to look at Xiao Wenyao, and asked respectfully, "Your Highness, do you have anything to do with me?" Xiao Wenyao asked directly, "Have you brought the perfume soap I asked you to bring me?" Wu Yuan smiled and said, "Since it is Her Royal Highness the Princess's order, I will naturally obey it. Those things are still on the carriage. I will go and deliver them to Her Highness the Princess." Xiao Wenyao said, "No, I'll go with you, and you tell me about Daxia." I don't know if she was influenced by Yellow Nyan, but Xiao Wenyao was very interested in all aspects of Daxia. And Wu Yuan is from Daxia. Every time Wu Yuan comes back from Daxia, she will ask Wu Yuan something about Daxia. For example, some interesting things happened in Daxia recently, or if there was any gossip about the Prince of Daxia, she would ask Wu Yuan to find out anything she found interesting. After hearing Xiao Wenyao's words, Wu Yuan said, "Okay, Your Highness, if you have anything you want to know, you can ask me." Then Xiao Wenyao said as he walked, "It is said that the northern king of Daxia is very handsome. Is he really handsome? Can you describe to me how handsome he is?" This. Wu Yuan was stunned when he heard Xiao Wenyao's first question. Wu Yuan thought for a moment and did not answer immediately. Seeing that Wu Yuan did not answer directly, Xiao Wenyao turned to look at Wu Yuan and asked doubtfully, "What's wrong? Why don't you speak?" Wu Yuan thought for a moment and said, "Your Highness, I really don't know how to describe King Bei. If you look at it from the perspective of Daxia women, Bei Wang is indeed handsome and extraordinary, but if you look at it from the standards of prairie women when choosing a husband, I'm afraid Bei Wang looks a little thin. He is not a martial artist. He's not physically strong." Hearing Wu Yuan's answer, Xiao Wenyao's eyes suddenly lit up, and then she said, "I don't like men who are too strong. Almost all prairie men are fat and ugly. What's so good about them?" Seeing that Xiao Wenyao seemed to be very interested in King Bei, Wu Yuan continued, "Your Highness, Princess, you should also know that King Bei particularly likes beautiful women. If he meets Your Highness, he will definitely be unable to walk. If His Highness is interested in the North King, this time the king goes south to attack Beijun, it may be an opportunity for you." Hearing what Wu Yuan said, Xiao Wenyao sighed, "You heard it just now. The princess said that the North King is still useful. Even if she goes south and captures the North King this time, she will not hand him over to me." Wu Yuan smiled faintly. He originally planned to trick Xiao Wenyao into going directly to Beijun, but after thinking about it, he decided to forget it. Now is a critical period. Doing unnecessary things will arouse suspicion, and then the gain will outweigh the loss. Then Wu Yuan said, "Your Highness, don't worry, you will always have the opportunity to be alone with King Bei." Xiao Wenyao said, "Forget it, let's not talk about this. By the way, do you know how to make perfume and soap? Every time I run out, I have to wait for you to go to Daxia to buy it. It's too troublesome. Why don't we do it ourselves?" Wu Yuan said, "I'm sorry, Your Highness, the making methods of perfume and soap are only available in Buwang Mansion. They only sell finished products and have not disclosed the making methods of soap and perfume." Hearing Wu Yuan's words, Xiao Wenyao was stunned for a moment. "Bei Wangfu." Wu Yuan then added, "Yes, it is said that these two things, perfume and soap, were created by King Bei. Not only that, this time I also brought something called soap to Her Royal Highness the Princess, which is also made by Buwang Mansion. The soap is more convenient to use than soap. I guarantee that Her Highness the Princess will like it after using it." Chapter 74 My daughter should not marry the King of North Xian. After hearing Wu Yuan's words, Xiao Wenyao became even more interested in King Bei. During this period, because her father was going to attack Beijun, she often heard rumors about Buwang. This is one of the reasons why Xiao Wenyao suddenly became interested in King Bei. On the one hand, she heard the word Northern King a lot recently, and on the other hand, she wanted a more refined slave, that is, a pretty boy. And what she wanted was that her slave status should not be too low. A slave that was too low would not have a sense of accomplishment in conquering. It happened that King Bei was a useless prince, which gave her an idea. She originally thought that King Bei was just a prince who only knew how to eat, drink and have fun in his mansion. Unexpectedly, after hearing what Wu Yuan said, Xiao Wenyao suddenly realized that King Bei seemed to be of some use. She particularly likes the perfume and soap from Buwangfu. When the perfume is applied to her body, she can cover up the fishy smell of the fur, and the soap can wash her body clean. She couldn't live without these two things now. As soon as she heard that these two things were created by Bei Wang, her inner thoughts about catching Bei Wang and turning him into her slave became even stronger. Xiao Wenyao then said, "It turns out that King Bei is not a complete waste." Speaking of this, Xiao Wenyao asked curiously, "By the way, what is soap?" Wu Yuan explained, "Soap is specially used for bathing. After bathing, the fragrance will be left on people's bodies and will not dissipate for a long time." Xiao Wenyao asked, "Isn't this just like perfume?" Wu Yuan said, "Your Highness, perfume can be applied to people at any time, but it cannot clean people's bodies. However, soap is different. Soap can clean the dirt on people's bodies." Xiao Wenyao seemed to understand and said, "It turns out that it is the same as soap." Wu Yuan said speechlessly, "Your Highness, soap is actually used to clean clothes, not for bathing." Xiao Wenyao didn't listen to Wu Yuan's words at all. She said directly, "Whatever, as long as the dirt on the body can be washed away." Seeing that Xiao Wenyao had already said this, Wu Yuan was too lazy to continue correcting anything, as long as she liked it. As the two walked, they came to Wu Yuan's caravan. At this time, Wu Yuan's caravan carriage was filled with various commodities exchanged from Daxia. Ever since Yellow Nanyang bribed Daxia merchants, some caravans in Daxia have often traded with barbarians. At first, they only traded some salt and tea. Gradually, as the commodity transactions became more and more frequent, the barbarians purchased iron directly from Daxia, and later began to trade weapons and armor. The Serious Kings group can become as powerful as it is today, and it is inseparable from these businessmen in Daxia. Wu Yuan immediately came to a carriage or two, rummaged through the carriages, and then took out a piece of soap and brought it to Xiao Wenyao's front door. "Your Highness, this is the soap for bathing. Your Highness, please never use soap to bathe in the future. Soap is not good for the body and can damage the skin." Hearing Wu Yuan's words, Xiao Wenyao curiously took the soap from Wu Yuan's hand. Before she put the soap to her nose, she smelled a scent. Xiao Wenyao quickly put the soap under her nose and smelled it. Then she said in surprise, "It actually has a scent. This King Bei seems to be particularly interested in things used by women. If I can turn him into my slave, he might be able to create more useful women's products for me in the future." Wu Yuan actually wanted to say that this thing could be used by both men and women, but he didn't say much. Just let the innocent princess be happy. At this time, a man came to Xiao Wenyao. "Your Highness the Princess, the king has asked you to come over." Hearing this, Xiao Wenyao was stunned for a moment, and then asked, "What does my father want from me?" The man said, "I don't even know, you will know when you go there." Xiao Wenyao then handed the soap to Wu Yuan. "Wu Yuan, send all these things to where I live." Wu Yuan said respectfully, "Okay, Your Royal Highness." After Wu Yuan finished speaking, Xiao Wenyao happily came to the royal tent, which is the largest yurt in the Tianlang tribe. Entering the yurt, Xiao Wenyao found that there were many people sitting inside the yurt that she had never seen before. Sitting in the middle is a tall and burly middle-aged man with a bulging head, who is Xiao Wenyao's father, the current serious king Xiao Hongbo. After seeing Xiao Wenyao come in, Xiao Hongbo was about to speak when Xiao Wenyao immediately asked, "Dad, what do you want from me?" Seeing Xiao Wenyao taking the initiative to ask, Xiao Hongbo said without any nonsense, "Yao, you have grown up, and it's time to get married." As soon as these words came out, it was like a bolt from the blue, and Xiao Wenyao was stunned on the spot. It took a long time for Xiao Wenyao to react. She said quickly, "Dad, my daughter is still young. She can't bear to leave her father, and she still wants to continue to accompany her father." Although Xiao Wenyao is a little naive, she is not a fool. People like her can only marry into other tribes and become a tool for marriage. Just look at the princess and you will know that she is married to a bad old man and waits for him to poop and pee every day, but Yellow Nanyang is still one of the better ones. After all, Yellow Nanyang has a lot of power. It was different for other women. Xiao Wenyao still remembered several other women who married the previous serious king, many of whom were tortured to death by the serious king. If King Tianlang was still in good health when Yellow Nanyang married his predecessor, King Tianlang, I'm afraid Yellow Nanyang wouldn't be much better. Xiao Wenyao is very afraid of getting married. Seeing Xiao Wenyao's rejection of marriage, Xiao Hongbo immediately said, Yao, prairie women must marry when they reach your age. Even though you are the daughter of this king, you are no exception." Hearing Xiao Hongbo's strong tone, Xiao Wenyao knew that no matter what she said, it would be useless. She then had no choice but to say resignedly, "Dad, my daughter knows." The seriousness on Xiao Hongbo's face was instantly wiped away, and then he said with a smile, "Since you agree, then after I go south to capture Baixian, you can marry the king of Baixian and become the princess of Baixian." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Wenyao's face turned pale instantly. The king of North Xian was the king of a barbarian tribe that had recently moved to the north. Nowadays, the barbarians no longer have the rule of the Great Xia and have divided into 7 tribes. Each tribe has its own royal court and its own king. Of course, every tribe actually wants to unify the entire barbarian tribe as before, and Xiao Hongbo is no exception. After he captured Beijun, he planned to establish a country first, then win over the king of Baixian through marriage, and then call himself the Great Xia to make the barbarian tribes surrender to him. Xiao Hongbo is a very ambitious barbarian king. At this time, Xiao Wenyao knelt on the ground with a plop, "Dad, my daughter should not marry the king of Baixian." Xiao Wenyao also heard who the king of Baixian was. The tribe of the king of Baixian was different from his own. Because their tribe often communicated with Daxia, many of their habits were already the same as those of Daxia. Not to mention how poor the Byzantine king's tribe was, they even retained the habit of cannibalism, and the Byzantine king himself was a very cruel person. Xiao Wenyao really couldn't imagine what kind of inhuman treatment she would receive if she married the Queen of Byzantine. Chapter 75 I know a friend of mine can help you. Although Xiao Wenyao was a princess in the Tianlang tribe and had a relatively high status, it was different when she married into the tribe of Byzantine king. In barbarian tribes, women's status is generally lower. Xiao Wenyao has a high status in the Tianlang tribe, mainly because she has an father who is the king of the barbarians. The status that Princess Yelunanyan achieved today did not happen overnight. She also benefited from the physical discomfort of her predecessor, King Tianlang, and was able to slowly gather some power into her hands. Xiao Wenyao's delicate body could not help but tremble when she thought about how she would be tortured by the North Xian king after marrying into the tribe. Xiao Wenyao continued to cry, "Dad, my daughter heard that the previous concubines of King Byzantine all died unexpectedly. My daughter is still young and she doesn't want to die so early." Hearing Xiao Wenyao's words, Xiao Hongbo was furious, "Damn it! King Byzantine is also a barbarian king after all. He is completely worthy of you. Why are you dissatisfied? That's it. After I capture Beijun, you will marry me. There is no need to discuss this matter." Seeing that her father had made the final decision, Xiao Wenyao instantly got up from the ground and rushed out crying. Xiao Wenyao ran wildly on the grassland. It took an unknown amount of time before she recovered. At this time, Wu Yuan came to Xiao Wenyao and said, "Your Highness, what's wrong with you?" Wu Yuan was just letting people unload the goods when he suddenly found Xiao Wenyao running out of the king's tent, crying while running. He guessed that there must be some new information, so he hurriedly pretended to comfort Xiao Wenyao and ran to get closer. "Xiao Wenyao." Xiao Wenyao wiped her tears and said, "My father asked me to marry the king of Byzantine, but I don't want to marry that ogre." This. Wu Yuan's brain was stunned. King of North Korea? Is it possible that King Tianlang and King Byzantine will send troops at the same time to attack Beijun this time? Wu Yuan thought for a while and realized that it was indeed impossible for the serious king to gather an army of 300,000 troops if it was just a tribe. Only two barbarian kings joining forces could have an army of 300,000 troops. King Tianlang asked King Byzantine to help him attack Byzantine, which would naturally give King Byzantine some benefits, and I am afraid Xiao Wenyao is one of the benefits. Seeing that Wu Yuan didn't speak, Xiao Wenyao turned to look at Wu Yuan and said, "Wu Yuan, can you help me escape to Daxia? I can't marry the king of Byzantine no matter what. I don't want to die yet." "Well, Your Highness Princess, I'm afraid no one will dare to agree to this matter." Wu Yuan was actually struggling in his heart, because he was just a spy, and he didn't know what kind of decisions Beijun and Buwang would make. If the daughter of a barbarian king was brought to Beijun or Daxia without authorization, it might cause the barbarians to send troops in advance, which would be extremely unfavorable for Beijun's deployment. Thinking of this, Wu Yuan said, "Your Highness, I know that a friend of mine can help you, but I need to ask his opinion. I may not be able to give you an answer until I come back next time." Hearing this, Xiao Wenyao was instantly filled with hope. "Wu Yuan, is everything you said true? Can that friend of yours really help me?" Wu Yuan said, "Well, if he is willing, he will definitely be able to help you." Xiao Wenyao then said, "I'm sorry to bother you, when will you leave for Daxia?" Wu Yuan replied, "Your Highness, I just came back today. I have to rest for 2 days no matter what." Xiao Wenyao said, "Oh, okay, then next time you come back, you must tell me your friend's answer as soon as possible." Wu Yuan said, "Okay, Your Highness." While the two were talking, a rough man's voice came from behind them. "Yao Yao, are you okay?" Hearing this, Wu Yuan and Xiao Wenyao turned around at the same time and found that it was Queen Xiao Peng. Wu Yuan immediately said, "Your Highness, I will leave first and you can chat." After saying this, Wu Yuan turned back to his carriage and continued to unload the goods. Xiao Pengtian is Xiao Wenyao's uncle and the brother of Xiao Hengbo's original wife, the princess. Originally Xiao Pengtian should not be surnamed Xiao, because Yellow Nanyang stipulated that the surname Xiao was the surname of the royal family, but in order to win over Xiao Pengtian, Xiao Hengbo gave him the surname Xiao. Seeing that it was his uncle, Xiao Wenyao asked, "Uncle, what do you want from me?" Xiao Pengtian sighed and said, "Yao Yao, I have heard about you." Xiao Wenyao was stunned for a moment. Xiao Pengtian continued, "Xiao Hengbo is really going too far. First he killed my sister, and now he wants to marry you to that uncivilized tribe." Hearing Xiao Pengtian's words, Xiao Wenyao instantly extracted the key words. She looked at Xiao Pengtian and immediately asked, "Uncle, what did you just say? Did my father kill my mother?" Xiao Pengtian said angrily, "Who else but him? Your mother has always been in good health. How could she suddenly die suddenly? It was not Xiao Hengbo who killed your mother because he wanted to marry the princess." After hearing these words, Xiao Wenyao suddenly felt that her worldview collapsed. She really couldn't believe that her father could do such a thing. At this time, Xiao Wenyao still had the last glimmer of hope. She continued, "Uncle, these are all your guesses." Seeing that Xiao Wenyao couldn't believe it, Xiao Pengtian sighed again, "Yao, you are still young and don't understand this. Your father has become like the emperors of the Central Plains dynasty. For the power in their hands, they would sacrifice anything, including their own wives and daughters. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Don't worry, Yao. I will try my best to persuade your father not to marry you to the king of Bizian. If he really doesn't listen, then your uncle will think of other ways." Xiao Wenyao said movedly, "Thank you very much, uncle." Half a month later. Daxia, Beijing. Xianzheng Hall. In the court hall, the ministers were discussing some unimportant matters, when suddenly a man's roar came from outside the hall. "Urgent report from the north, barbarians are moving." Hearing this, the ministers who were arguing about some etiquette in the main hall instantly fell silent. Soon, a soldier with 3 red flags on his back entered the hall, knelt down half kneeling, raised the bamboo tube in his hand over his head and said, "Your Majesty, the barbarians are acting strangely, and North County is in danger." The eunuch quickly took the bamboo tube from the messenger soldier's hand, then walked to Emperor Xia, opened the bamboo tube, and handed the information inside to Emperor Xia. Emperor Xia took the parchment in his hand and read the text on it carefully. This was information written by Lu Chen himself. At this time, the Xianzheng Hall was extremely quiet. All the ministers were staring at Emperor Xia. The atmosphere in the entire hall was extremely dull. The barbarians have always been a serious problem for Daxia. Daxia has sent troops to fight the barbarians many times, but the result is more losses than wins. Even if Daxia won the battle, the barbarians could take advantage of the cavalry and quickly withdraw from the battlefield. So no matter how hard we fight, Daxia just can't completely eliminate the barbarians. Seeing the letter in which 300,000 barbarian cavalry were about to move south, Emperor Xia's face darkened instantly. The barbarian cavalry didn't come early or late, but they waited until he was about to clean up the family and went south. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Thank you.